job description. So, yeah, you ready? Okay, welcome back, everybody. I would like to return to regular session. Commissioner Bear, can I get a motion,
Yes,
please?
I move that we exit executive session and return to regular session.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 10, action regarding executive session.
Yes. Mr. Chair, I move to appoint Tracy Fletcher to the airport board to complete the term of Tim Stamp through December 31st, 2021.
Second, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Seeing no further business before the commissioners, I'd like to adjourn the special meeting June 7th, 2021. It's 8:20. Thank you all.
Pete, when you're ready, just unmute yourself and then I'll start the recording.
Hey, David, could you map the P drive for us, please, so that we can get to the P drive from the big screen?
Sure.
Thanks, Matt.
I started my grocery shopping in Walmart. So I needed stuff in all the various departments. So it was so hot in here too. I got to the point of like, I maybe printing press that. Not
Hey, David, do you have to come over here to map that P drive, or can you do it remotely? No. Answer. I did.
the budget 2021, 2022. It's not the same.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, David.
Yeah, for now.
It's right there. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Oh, okay.
I'll sign on this thing.
Yeah, I got good news. Your
Okay.
brother, I'm picked up that. Yeah.
Okay, it's 8:32. Call that budget work session in order, and who's up first? Looks like Tracy and Jackie.
Right, can you, in that folder that he has an invite for you, can you open? Let's see what I need. And then we'll start with this. So the Excel is not on.
Yes.
All right, I can go old school and.
Okay,
I don't think I've finished any of that stuff, so I can try to go from memory.
okay, if not, I'll get Zoom. Become a participant and then I'll share my screen.
Yeah, it's not on. No, no, no. Okay. Good morning, commissioners.
Right,
Kosar
Tracy.
and Ivera. So what I have prepared for you that there's the missing app for, a couple of worksheets. The first one talks about the revenue as of the end of May. And what I did is I went back and I kind of adjusted it for the ones we know that are coming in June. Like some of our big revenues in June are Pilt, car company, we get delinquent property taxes. The attorney's office reimbursement from the state. Some of those things always come in June. So I kind of adjusted it. But then I also did like a little bit of a projection to show what we would collect at the end of this fiscal year. Oh, missed all that good stuff. You want me to start over?
If you'd like to. If not,
I
it
can
was
start
really
over.
important stuff, but go ahead. Yeah.
Don't fall
please.
asleep because you guys have all heard this part. Okay, so on the worksheet, on the revenues through the end of May, I did kind of an analysis on what we will get in June, which includes things like PILT, delinquent property taxes, because all of our property taxes now are delinquent. The attorney reimbursement, forest reserve, and some of those other items that are typically June revenues. And then I projected them out. And with those, just figuring conservatively with what we have budgeted, I project that we should be at least 102% of our revenues. And that is without any county road fund transfer, because we've changed our procedure on those. And that is due mostly, I would say, in large part, because of the I don't want to call it necessarily a windfall, but it has kind of been a windfall with sales tax because we projected it so low because of COVID and being uncertain of how the sales would be through our region. But sales tax has been, very, very well. The next one, the worksheet that I was going to discuss is the cash on hand, estimated cash on hand. Figuring where we are as of right now and adding in some of the revenues that are yet to come. Going from memory on my worksheet here. Thank you for bearing with me. And then deducting on a high level all of the possible payments that they could be coming out of the general fund yet. I still project our cash on hand to be in the neighborhood of 4 million, which is very high for us. But one of the considerations, 4.4 million. One of the considerations with this is we did have some money through the CARES Act that did reimburse for expenditures that were already made for Sheriff Applehans's deputies. So depending on some budget decisions that you may have to make, we may not have 4 million for budgeting, but I think we will have still a considerable amount. We did end last year with cash on hand extra over and above what we budgeted, because we budgeted a fairly conservative number last year of, I believe it was 1.635 or 1.650 million last year. And we had actually closer to 2 million by the time we ended the year. But I'd rather be safe than sorry, because we've had 1 year where we were wrong. And so this is the estimated cash on hand that Amanda, thank you for printing, handed out. And if you have any questions on the revenues or anything, I would be happy to answer them. So I guess to sum up, I mean, we're looking at a really good spot to end this year, which makes for a really good place to start next year. But in the coming years is where I think there's going to be more concerns. I think we're going to have more economic shrink than what we had this last year.
So just one piece that I think we haven't included in the budget, but I've had discussions with my city county working group with regard to EMS. We have not paid any money towards emergency medical services for some time. I think that needs to stop because 20% of their calls go to the county specifically. They're working on that number right now, Tracy.
Okay.
And my thought was we'll do the detention center one time. I'm guessing that they'll want to pay the detention center one time since they haven't been paying monthly at the end of the fiscal year. And then we might budget money for EMS so we can go forward with that as a standard operating procedure. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, the more we know about what we need to budget for, the better, obviously, to go in with it, knowing ahead of time. Far as the jail, the boarding of the prisoners for the city, I mean, if they're going to catch that up to whatever level that should be by the end of this fiscal year, that would be great, because that is one of our unpaid revenues. We do have it currently in this year's budget, I believe, for 100,000, which whatever is going to help make up, whatever they are doing. I don't know that the total actual amounts billed equal 100,000. I haven't totaled that. Perhaps Sheriff Applehounds can speak to that when he presents. But also going forward, they do plan on paying us monthly or on a regular basis going for the next fiscal year for those boarding of prisoners?
I believe so.
Okay.
The MOU is, I believe, at our attorneys right now. That's passed through their attorneys with the changes that Sheriff Applehands suggested and the city chief of police worked on. So
yeah, that sounds great to me. I mean, if we're incurring calls for our county residents outside of city limits, I agree that there should probably be some compensation for the city for those services as well.
Yeah.
Is that, I guess my question also goes to, because I know the fire district has an agreement with them as well. Is that over and above those services? Or this is just EMS though? That's
this is
not
just
fire.
EMS.
Okay.
And there will be an MOU coming, I think. They are working on that MOU right now. And then, of course, we'll do the process. We'll sit, talk with them, send it to the attorneys here. So it could take a while, but your thoughts on truing up, even though we don't have that MOU in place for this year, probably won't have it for this year. Are we able to do that with the city, or do we need an MOU in place? I think ideally you'd want an MOU in place. But
I would think so, because it's a kind of on the same factor of the boarding of prisoners that they don't want to pay us without that in place too. Is that correct?
that's my
So,
I
I mean, that
understand.
would just be safety on both sides of the fence.
okay. For some reason today, my internet over here is unbelievably slow. So I can't join our meeting. As soon as we get doing my meeting, I could share my screen and we can get to your documents because I do have Excel.
There's nobody online to enjoy the sharing of the documents anyway, is there, besides IT?
Yeah, I'm not.
I use enjoying. I mean, I like numbers and
Right.
revenues and those things, but I'm a number nerd, so.
Yeah, I just, the participants are, let me see here.
Oh, Kurt's enjoying the numbers.
Kurt's on board. So I'm not sure what number to put. They're working on it right now. I'm
Okay.
guessing $250,000 is what I'm thinking, if I remember seeing the numbers correctly, but I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Okay, and when they go to bill us, will it be on the actual charges or just like a flat fee for service per month type of situation, do you know?
I think we should do the monthly if the jail's been done monthly. so that we can just have an idea of what's going on every month. But
But
the
for-
MOU is still left to decide that. I suspect we'll do that, Tracy.
For actual charges or a flat fee?
Actual
for on-call
charges,
kinda.
yeah, I guess I don't know how they bill exactly,
Gotcha.
but then, the EMS, the billing is handled by Ivanson. And so Ivanson doesn't make or lose any money, I'm told, on the billing. And then whatever's left over from insurance goes to the city to offset the EMS, but that isn't even close. So, as I see other counties spending 900 million, 2 million for EMS services, I think we have to pull our weight. So,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that myself.
so
We just need to know.
yeah. And I have a note out to Janine. She was gone last week to give me some sort of idea of what that amount would be.
Perfect.
Jackie.
Those funds may be in consideration of where that money comes from. Maybe 250,000 out of emergency reserves with the starters, that's for, I don't know, I guess we got, I'm just thinking,
Right.
we got funds,
Right.
just where that could come from.
Need to find the right home.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I'd leave that to you guys as a recommendation, since you know ins and outs more about those items than I do.
Good morning.
Morning, Jackie.
Thank you, County Commissioners. I am happy to report that all departments have submitted their proposed fiscal year 2021-2022 budget requests for your review. Several departments have asked for increases for your consideration. Those departments will make their presentation, and it would be beneficial as we work through the process that you give your nod of approval or disapproval so that we can work towards balancing the budget for the citizens that we represent here in Albany County. The approach that we are taking this year is unique from previous years. You are allowing departments that have additional requests to present those requests apart from each department making presentations. I have provided for you several worksheets. First of all, you do have your budget schedule for today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. I have also provided to you copies of all of the departmental requests that are going to be presented so that you can see where they sit. All of the expenditures have been updated through the end of May. I also have prepared worksheets for you that include the overall budget actuals year to date. It's this long sheet with all of the departments on it that basically says where we're at currently in regards to our total expenditures to date and what is left to be expended in the month of June if all expenses are incurred. I've also provided for you basically a breakdown of the proposed worksheets, which are these long colored copies here that provide basically the scenario of what was requested for fiscal year 2021, what is requested for 2022, the differences, the shortages that we're looking at, $2,373,200 to date. Lots of paper, but as we go through the process, I want to continue to update you so that you have real numbers and actual figures that we're looking at. You will note that there have been departmental merges in salaries and benefits for the sheriff and detention, as well as the clerk and elections. This budget cycle, there are several departmental changes. New to the budget cycle is Commissioner Ibarra, the county attorney, the public health nurse manager, the WIC director, the drug courts director, the EMA director, our new sheriff, a new circuit court judge, and we're without a grants manager or GIS. This year, you've put out the services for county engineer, custodial services, and auditor. There are many changes we are going to experience together. With COVID-19, new procedures will be implemented on how best to serve the public. Many departments, including general accounts, clerk, grants, assessor, sheriff, detention, road and bridge, and public health, were reimbursed COVID benefit reimbursements. Fiscal year 2021's proposed expenditures were $13,451,402 in comparison to this year's $13,920,158, an overall increase of $455,899 in the county general fund. We want you to know that this process is a team approach, and the benefits of working with that approach outweigh any other way. Please, at any time, if there are any questions or concerns, that we raise them now so that together we can collaboratively work to prepare a balanced budget for the citizens of Albany County, as well as the departments that are in charge of running the county. If I can answer any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Otherwise, I've given you a wealth of information. I will continue to do so as we move through this process. And thank you for allowing us the ability to make these presentations for your consideration today and the rest of the week.
Thanks, Jackie. Any questions for Jackie? All right. Tracy, anything else? What is your base ballpark number for the amount we're working with? You said 102% of revenue. What is that? You don't have to give me the exact figure, but if it's 13,500,000 or something like that, that would be a great number just to work with in my mind.
Sue, get ready to drink from the fire hose. Pete and I are still drinking from the fire hose. We just have gotten lots of practice. We just never.
101.9% of the revenue budget.
Okay, and do you have a dollar amount that?
That translates to.
Yeah, kind of an equivalent.
$250,597. But there is also a chance, because health was fully funded this year, so that could come in much higher, which would increase that number. But I left what we just budgeted.
Okay.
It's impossible.
Right.
Right? I know, and it's so political.
Okay. Well, we're 9 minutes ahead. Unless commissioners, you have anything you want to do, we'll see if Sheriff Applehans can help us out here and get going early. We're ready.
Commissioners, thank you for your time this morning. So, I'm a little bit new to this game as well in terms of you guys' procedures and everything. Were you guys able to get my budget justifications that were turned in? And were you able to read through that and take a look at the proposals that I've made? Would you like me to go through that again today? One by one, line by line? There's only about 7 of them.
Why don't you do that,
Okay.
Sheriff Applehans, just for the public and
Sure.
other department heads and the like.
Okay, so we prepared our budget for the next fiscal year. And we've made essentially 3 big changes. One is consolidating a couple of our line items. Second one is increasing some of our line items. And then the third one is either decreasing or eliminating some of our line items that are unnecessary. So the first one that you see in that budget request and justification is our special duty overtime. You're seeing that it's being increased from $28,000 to $61,000. What I want to explain to you guys is that that increase doesn't necessarily come out of the general fund. The reason why we increased on how it is budgeted is because, as you guys have seen over the months that I've been here, we have several other contracts for special duty overtime. And so that money is coming from outside resources. And that's why we put that number down. So you can see in there that we put for WYDOT, US Forest Service, Wyoming Livestock Board, and UW Athletics. For WYDOT, it's approximately $10,000 per year that they're going to award us. United States Forest Service will be $19,000 a year. Wyoming Livestock Board will be approximately $10,000 a year. And then UW Athletics is the one that's a little bit fluctuated, but based on our historical data, we said that that special duty overtime that's going to come in is approximately 9.1 thousand, so 9,100. And that's how we came up with the numbers on the increase in there. So not only will you see that increase in terms of budgeting, but you should see that increase in revenue to offset that. So advertising, we are asking to raise advertising from $1,750 to $3,500. The cost of advertising, especially in local and state newspapers, is gone a lot higher than what I'm used to. So essentially we're almost doubling that budget. We're using that for specifically advertising to promote and advertise open positions that we have on a local level. So, we're also use some of that money to pay for advertising services electronically. We're utilizing a lot of our free services right now through LinkedIn, Indeed, Facebook, but there's opportunities where we can expand our reach by putting a little bit of money forward. And so that's one of the main reasons why we've asked for a small increase in advertising. Auto expenses is being increased from $25,000 a year to $30,000 a year. This is for the maintenance of our fleet. This last fiscal year, we've seen that we've gone over budget approximately $5,000. And so that's what we're asking for. This is just regular routine maintenance, oil changes, tire rotations, alignments for our entire fleet. So that's what we're asking. So we've taken a look at our fleet and located other funding resources so that some of the cars that we have that end up costing us more in maintenance, we're able to replace a lot sooner. We have a special purpose tax money that's set aside specifically for that reason. And so we'll start utilizing that tax money instead of using the money from the general fund that we usually do for the vehicles in our fleet. Contract services and investigations. This is these two line items that we wanted to combine. They basically kind of do the same thing. The amount budgeted investigations would remain the same, but the amount in contract services would increase from $2,000 to $3,500. This line item is dedicated for the purchase of nursing phlebotomy services. I don't know if you guys are familiar. When we get a DUI for the county, we bring in that person for chemical testing at the detention center. And sometimes that requires a blood draw. We don't have trained and certified staff to take that blood draw for that DUI. And so we contract that out. Right now, we contract that out with Stitches. It's $100 per blood draw for evidentiary purposes. So we've basically budgeted in the past for approximately 20 DUIs, 20 blood draws at $100 a pop. We feel that that's pretty short. It has been short over the years. And so that's why we're asking for that increase. It's gonna, like I said, when we start to get out of COVID, we're gonna see people start traveling more, and inevitably our DUI numbers are gonna go up. We also have a contract with Wyoming Department of Transportation for an increased enforcement in DUIs as well. And so one of the side costs of that is that we're probably going to see more blood draws. So that's essentially what we're doing there, is combining those two budget items and then increasing it to account for the blood draws that we're going to have. Town gown membership is being decreased from $1,200 to $0. As far as I know, there is no town gown membership between Sheriff's Office and the University of Wyoming. With the University of Wyoming's turnover rate, I was there a lot of years. This town gown membership comes and goes. It seems like every 5 years. In terms of how we're moving forward and how we interact with the university, we're going to utilize other programs that are free to maintain those types of relationships. And so that's one that we're decreasing to where we don't feel that we need to spend county money to maintain those relationships. So.
Just pick up the phone.
Exactly. Yeah. Free 99 on that one. So Axon licensing and storage for body worn cameras. Historically, we were just paying for the licensing part of it, which was $5,385. As you guys saw, I think it was 2 meetings ago last month, we entered into a contract with Axon to provide new equipment, body cameras, and tasers for our entire department. That comes out to $76,842 per year. So you're going to see that in that budget request increase. Although we're offsetting that cost with special purpose wind tax money that we have available to us within our accounts. So even though you see that increase, that money's not coming from the general fund. Detention center supplies, this item is going to be decreased from $24,000 to $20,000. When we looked at our budget historically, this line item has never been fully expended. And so we're basically reducing it to the amount that we usually expend. That's boarding of prisoners. So this line item is being increased from $122,000 per year to $130,000 for the fiscal year. This line item is being increased due to the fluctuating cost of food. We use this line item to feed our inmates. We have fluctuation of inmates throughout the year. There's some times where we don't have a whole lot in our detention center. There's other times of the year where we have a lot of people in our detention center. So our food costs fluctuate, but we have seen this trend that the cost of food has been going up. So we've asked for that extra $8,000. If you can see there that our average cost per meal per inmate is about $2.25 per meal. So we're able to feed them, provide them the resources that they need. It's actually pretty decent food, but keep our costs down as well. So some of this also can be offsetted with the new MOU agreement that we're going to have with the city, where they will start to provide funding for their portion of their inmates that come into our detention center. So the last one, which is the bigger one, is salaries. So doing two things here. We've had two line items where we had salaries of our employees on patrol and salaries of our employees in detention center. For the most part, they have the same classification. So one of the big things that we're asking is just to combine those two line items into one line item, so that we don't have to basically, it all comes from the same money anyway. So it just makes it easier accounting purposes to put all of our salaries into one line item. The second thing that we're doing is that we are asking for raises, and we're asking it in two different ways. So we're aware that a surplus has been created from the CARES fund. We applied for that grant to basically pay for those salaries during COVID and used that money, which created a surplus in the general fund of the salary monies that we weren't using for our deputies. So what we're doing is we're asking two different things. Take that portion of money, give an initial increase, and then take the rest of that money and set it aside so that we can continue to give a 1% increase every year for the next decade. So the math that we did, it should be attached to this request that we made, and our spreadsheet is there. We've also uploaded it on the P drive if you guys want to take a look at that. The way those numbers comes out, so the line item would be raised by $110,000 this year. And essentially what we did is we looked at all of our salaries and challenges that we've had over the years in terms of recruiting and retaining top talent at our department. And we knew that salaries was going to be a part of that. So we did a market analysis of other law enforcement within the region and then definitely within the county to see how far we were behind. We noticed that our starting salary is approximately about $7,000 behind even just the two main law enforcement agencies here in town. We're quite a bit farther behind in terms of Wyoming's State Patrol. And so we basically came out with an average to where we can meet up that market value of basically $7,000 for entry deputies coming in, adjusted all of our salaries to start to meet that market value, and then come up with the spreadsheet that you guys have in front of you. So that will, like I said, put us in market, in competition with the market value, definitely within the county, which is some of our biggest competitors, and then in the region as well. Setting aside the money, the extra funds that we have that we used for my department, that will allow for a 1% COLA raise for each deputy for every year for the next decade, to basically expending all of those funds. What that does is that gives us a ton of benefits within our department. The first thing that it does is it gives basically kind of a guaranteed salary that people will know based on their longevity. It also eliminates subjective merit-based raises, which we want to get rid of in our department. And so that way our deputies have a little bit of a peace of mind. The county has a peace of mind as well, to where getting this budget set up, no matter who comes in, whether it's me or somebody else after me, you shouldn't have to worry too much about large fluctuations in terms of salary. The way this budget is set up is what we're really crossing our fingers is that it's basically election proof. And so that if it's, whether it's me or somebody else that comes on in, they can take a look at the budget and said, hey, this was already done. This is where we're going. The money is already set aside for it. And it should be a fairly easy transition for anybody that's coming in.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
It would help Sue to know that our sheriff's department is the training ground for all the other law enforcement agencies, because pay sort of happens by rank. And we, because of finances, we've underpaid our law enforcement chronically, and turnover is expensive. Right? So
yeah, so essentially what we've been doing is that we do a pretty good job of attracting people coming in, although lately not terribly too much in terms of kind of last year before I came in. But then they'll come in, they'll get trained, they'll get their certifications, they get a little bit of time on the road, and then they see that they're much more marketable in a lot of other places that can pay significantly higher than we can. So to give an example, like I said, our starting salary is about $43,000 a year. Once you get done with training, you have a couple of years out of under your belt, you can push up your salary up to about $47,000 a year. UW starts like at about $50,000 to $51,000 a year. So LPD starts at $49,000 a year. And then when you're done with training, you automatically get bumped up somewhere in between $52,000 to $55,000. Wyoming Highway State Patrol starts at $55,000. And if you have any experience and then your lateral transfer, you can make a ton of money. To give you an example, like for me, being 10 years in with a lot of experience and a lot of different certifications, even at this public salary that I have now, I could easily make more as a road officer at Casper.
Because of overtime. So
No, that's starting
I'm
salary.
saying it's great.
So I can make more as a road deputy or a road officer at Fort Collins Police Department. It'd be a significant raise with a significant decrease in responsibility just based on the experience that I have. And so what I'm trying to do is making sure that all of our lower level deputies can reach that competitive mark there so that we can retain. All of my upper level staff is not receiving a raise in this request. So,
It's kind of like this, when you don't have enough, how it's been is when you don't have enough money to buy a gallon of milk, so you buy a quart. If you buy 4 quarts, you're way higher than if you just buy a gallon. So that's about how it's been, and that's how tight it is. So when somebody leaves and a position is open, because that time is budgeted, that sort of is used or has been used to offset overtime and training costs of another employee. So it's coming out of our hide one way or another, except there's actually a possibility when it all washes through that it becomes less expensive to do law enforcement in this department with the raises, because there'd be less turnover and less training other departments, officers for them,
that's
less
essentially
overtime.
that's essentially our goal, is to get to fully staff. And like I said, that's that initial cost that we're basically asking for this year, but that we're able to keep those people and retain them so that we have less turnover. Also with the matrix that we've provided for you as well, even if we do have some turnover, which we will, because there's going to be a few things that we just can't account for in terms of people moving for any type of family issues or personal issues, those types of things. We said that, if you have a higher level deputy that leaves and then we hire at a lower level deputy, then we're going to have some cost savings there. And then it'll work through that matrix. So as we move along, like I said, this is one of the bigger asks that I have, but I think it's going to not only help out the department, but the county overall in terms of the law enforcement that we provide. Like I said, making those salaries competitive, retaining employees, attracting good talent, and then having good sound budgeting for a very long period of time.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Chair Babelon, you said something about, sort of going away from merit-based and going to standardized, time in kind of, but I think that the merit-based still exists in the form of rank.
It will.
So you have the option or the ability of the sheriff to do merit-based raises, but they have to do it
Right.
rank, like as if
You're going to have
if you're a corporal. or
Yep,
what.
you're going to have to get promoted. And so what we've done in here is we've truncated our rank. So essentially we want to get rid of the corporal position and just make it a sergeant position based on the responsibilities that they have and a whole lot of other reasons to do that. But it truncates our matrix. And the way we set that matrix up is that based on your longevity, you'll have some room to move. But that ceiling hits at the next rank. So if somebody is driven more based on finances because of their circumstances, they're going to have to get promoted to receive those extra funds. And that comes with that extra set of responsibilities. And so, like I said, it's a pretty good job matrix within our department to where we don't have somebody that's a road deputy that's been here 18 years, making more than, what a lieutenant would be making. Like I said, it's nice and tiered and structured to where there is that incentive there if you wanted to go above and beyond and move your rank up through that structure. It's built into that salary matrix.
It's a step in grade or job classification.
It is.
And so you said, Sheriff Falkenhayn, that the upper echelon would not be included in this. pay
That's
raise
correct. They are not included.
But
So
are you looking to have them get a pay raise next year?
no. So my lieutenants and then myself are already kind of at a high enough level. So in terms of step one, we wanted to make sure that sergeants and below were taken care of because that's where we have the biggest
Turnover.
amount of turnover, and that's where we have the biggest lag behind other competitors in terms of the salary. So no, in terms of, and even in the COLA raises, like I said, that the upper echelon is not included in that salary matrix. We will look at that a little bit farther down.
Sheriff Falkenhayn, have you changed the step in grade then from your predecessor? I mean, it seems like you've combined detention and patrol, and then you've been trying to eliminate the corporal position.
Right.
So have you just essentially flattened or compressed, and then
Yeah, we haven't necessarily, well, we're not as tall. So yeah, we have flattened and compressed it a lot, and to where we're, like I said, divvying out those responsibilities quite a bit more. It makes in terms of the responsibilities that we have and the structure that we have as well, we're not going to be nearly as top heavy. So because a lot of our work, day-to-day type of work is really done more, but at those kind of lower levels. And then supervisory stuff is done more at those top levels as well. So yes, we've truncated it, and made it just much more efficient as well. We've had a few budgeting issues in the past, some miscalculations from my predecessor as well. And so this new matrix accounts for all of that, should keep us flush to where we won't have any large gaps in our salary line items. One of the few things I noticed right when I got here. It's an issue that definitely needed to be addressed.
yeah, there seem to be some surprises on anniversary dates and how to figure that out. And I'm suspecting that you've figured that one out.
Yep, it's all accounted for in the salary matrix.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any questions at all? Really?
I have to say that I'm super impressed. I figured that as complex as the budget is and all the moving parts, that you would struggle, because I would. But you must have gotten some pretty good help, because there's some boldness in here, and it reflects vision, and I appreciate it. It's cool.
No problem. No,
Makes me happy.
we changed some staff classifications. I now have a budget manager that's able to help me with these numbers. And like I said, I was pretty fortunate to come in with some budget experience in a few of my other jobs that I've worked in the past, and so able to apply it to the work and the stuff that you guys do here at the county.
So if I just doing a quick back of the napkin, figuring here, it's a net plus 120 to the general fund, give or take a few bucks.
Yep,
Okay.
with to be honest, 110 of that is salaries.
Right, right.
The other 10,000 was the other 6 or 7 other budget items that we talked about.
That wash lower and higher, it's basically a push, except for the.
Commissioners, any other questions?
The only question I have is for Jackie and Tracy, and that is that set aside something that's proper and doable? I'm gonna guess the salary costs, the total of all of that was probably that Amanda and Christina participated in that to nail that down pretty tight.
So we've included, that's not just base salary, we've included all of the other benefits that go into that as well, into those calculations and into that salary matrix as well.
Tracy?
Where the CARES money did create a surplus in Sheriff Alpahans' expenditure line items, if you set aside that money, it creates a precedent also for other departments to set aside their money at the end of every year, which then depletes the cash on hand. I mean, I commend Aaron or Sheriff Alpahans, for coming up with a plan like this and using that money and leveraging it like he is hoping to do. But it also, I mean, it could be a double-edged sword. But that's at your discretion. So, and also if that 4 million that I gave you on the cash on hand earlier, if you do choose to do the set aside for his salary increases that he has proposed, then that would also decrease, of course, by that amount. And your total amount is
I think if we do it over the 10 years as we passed, it comes to roughly 2.8. So it'd be 2.8 million over 10 years. So essentially what we've done is taken that surplus that we have, and instead of spending it all at once, just little by little, more of a tortoise than a hare type of deal.
It's not indifferent from what we are doing with our own salary reserve for the other county employees. This one would be solely for the sheriff and detention employees. But we're caterpillaring along on ours, at 200,000 a year going into our salary reserve for the rest of the county employees.
Right.
Just items for your consideration.
And it's your thought, Tracy, if this were to be approved, that we would set aside a salary account for the sheriff's office, independent of the other county employees account that we have, and we would fund that yearly, or what's your thoughts about that? Could we put 3 million in this time and feel like that's the right thing to do, or is that something that you would rather it not be done? You'd rather it be done on a yearly basis?
I do feel that it is something that we can do, but anytime a department has a surplus in their expenditure budget, there could be that potential of, hey, now the county treasurer has 6,000. She wants to set it aside for. And then
It's true. The only way we've ever made our budgets work is by basically going bare bones and leaving the extra with the commissioners. So if somebody's barn catches on fire, we can make a budget adjustment. I actually think so. The challenge that we have is that this commission likely won't be the same people sitting here in 10 years, right? So it's hard to plan or execute a vision beyond 2, 3, maybe 4 years tops, right? I actually would not be opposed to putting that money into the whole employees thing, and then allowing him, the account for the step and grade and job classification stuff that we have for all of the employees in the whole county, and then give them the green light to go ahead and do that. So it's not set aside specifically for the sheriff's department, but that doesn't mean that, when you give somebody a raise, that is a long-term commitment, because at some point the commissioners would have to say, we're just not going to fund your personnel line item, and that to the degree that you have planned for, and that's not likely to happen. And so to me, I don't know if it would hurt his feelings or bother him to have that set aside in the larger, the account for all the employees where we do those things, but I would be comfortable with that. it requires a certain amount of trust from the sheriff to the commissioners. The challenge is, and I think all of the county employees know this, is that commissions change, processes change, politics change, realities change. So it's hard to know what's going to happen in 10 years. But if that money is sitting there, and that to me, that would be an appropriate thing to do with, I mean, so we use the CARES Act money. So this is general fund money. It's not restricted because it's, you know, we saved that, right? So to me, if we go spending it now, we would have to tighten our belts again later. Like, to me, it's a much better way to think about sort of metering that out over years to stabilize our poor little county's budget.
Essentially, what I'm asking you guys to do is not only parcel that out, but essentially minimize your risk. You know, Heber is explained, there's always going to be risks with turnover that we have, elections that we have, new personnel that's coming in. But by taking the surplus that we have and setting it aside now, and however you guys decide that you want to do that, if you want to do that specifically for my department, or if you want to add it into the general salaries that would be able to then fund the COLA raises that I budgeted for that department. For me, that, you know, it doesn't really matter as long as I can guarantee to my employees that this is the money that would be coming based on your longevity, like I said, over this next period of time. But like I said, really what I'm asking you to do is take that surplus that you have, take that good fortune that you have, put it aside and minimize your risks.
So Jackie and Sheriff and Tracy, I'm guessing that, I think I know the answer to this question, but how did the sheriff's department get kind of outside of the county employee raises? I know that they created their own step and grade and the county employees didn't, or something happened and the other didn't. So could you maybe give me a little background? It seems.
Actually, we did it back probably early 2005. And it was great to get started out well, but then the sheriff took it at its own direction and developed his own. And so by doing so, then it balanced the hand because of the increase that we gave to certain employees without the county for those salaries. And so, and then that was under sheriff's law. And I mean, it failed. The minute that it was approved, it failed because basically it was one. And basically when that money was appropriated, you had to rent the that was so unfortunate. When Dave Sheriff O'Malley came on board, he developed a new plan and basically set it up and then worked with the students that implemented his plan was basically it happened the unemployed got more than the other. So the inequity really went out. And I think what Sheriff House is trying to do is in mind more that the employees know with previous administration, what are these employees need? They just depended who you were and you might replace
Part of
This
that,
allows them to know what to expect.
They will know if I have somebody that comes in, you know, if you guys decide to approve this, and then we go July 1 in terms of the new fiscal year, I'll be able to take a deputy that has 7 years in and I'll be like, this is what you're making. And 8 year, that's what you're making. And 9 year, this is what you're making. And then again, if they say, hey, I'm thinking about maybe testing for sergeant, I could be like, all right, this is what your salary is going to be. And all of a sudden, all of that kind of negotiating and confusion and everything absolutely goes away. Or you're like, you come in, this is where you're at. So you stick around, this is where you're at. This is where your ceiling's going to be. This is where the next step is up. These are your requirements. Like I said, it takes absolutely all of the guesswork out of it, makes it completely transparent. I know that we published those salaries on our website as well to the public. That new matrix will be put up on there as well. That's what we're going to use to advertise also. So everything is just right there above board, like I said, to try and minimize that risk. So you'll have a few, depending on, you know, who your sheriffs are that comes in there. But what I'm trying to do is get that foundation set up to where hopefully the next guy, like I said, whether that's myself or somebody else that comes in, will still be smart enough to take a look at it and be like, this work was already done. You know, it's good work and we're going to stay, you know, stick with it.
Well, it takes away the internal politicking and the palace intrigue, right? And also uncertainty contributes to turnover.
Mhm.
Somebody has certainty.
So everything will be, like I said, set. For the most part, set in stone.
So it seems pretty straightforward, Sheriff, that the salaries would be your number one priority and your cost raises.
That is my number one priority.
What would be your 2 and your 3? There's the boarding of prisoners, contract services, investigation, auto expenses, advertising. It seems like the other one's already been taken care of.
Detention center supply, or I'm sorry, no. Boarding of prisoners would be number 2. Auto expenses would be number 3.
Yeah, it seems to me if we're gonna if there's anything that can come from the government printing money and handing it out everywhere, it would be to stabilize and staunch the bleeding that we've had in the sheriff's office.
Right.
From my perspective, you know, so we have issues everywhere around the county, but this has been a chronic one that has been something that we couldn't figure out how to take care of just because we did not have enough money.
Yeah.
We just didn't have enough revenue to sort it out.
The number 2 for boarding of prisoners is important because we're statutorily required to provide that services to our inmates. That's why that's number 2. And then the number 3 in terms of the vehicle maintenance is important too, because again, that's the vehicle that we use for patrol to go out and you know, serve our statutory requirements.
Thank you. And before you go, I can't remember your name.
Okay.
Could you please come up and introduce yourself again to me? And maybe this will happen 5 more times. I hope
Sure,
not.
this is my real face.
Yeah.
I'm Rebecca Hayes. I'm the budget manager for the sheriff's office.
Thank you, Rebecca, for this and Sheriff for this. I'm so appreciative of this. This is kind of the Byzantine part of the budget that I could never really get my head around.
Right.
For the
It does
last couple of
get-
years, yeah, for the sheriff's office.
Yeah, anytime you guys have any questions regarding any of our budget line items, either by myself or Rebecca now, we're able to explain.
Thanks, Sheriff. Appreciate it. Yep.
Right.
And, you know, this will be, that's my only concern.
And Jackie brought up that concern with me as well. And basically what I've said is that, you know, this is that first big step. That second step that we'd have to take is now trying to make sure that we can start to find revenue and revenue resources so that after that funding is expended at the end of 10 years, that we're able to do so. And like I've told Jackie, the cool thing about it is that we got a decade to figure it out.
Well, that would be things like sales tax and assessed valuation countywide.
That's a piece of it. You know, there'll be other pieces that come in throughout the years in terms of other revenue resources that we can look and then discuss as a team as, you know, where do we want to go? What are our needs now? What are our needs in the future? And start to balance those out. So.
Well, and I appreciate you thinking in the long game. I appreciate your comments, Jackie. On my first blush here, my thought would be to put it in with the other employee raises with a note that said this was thought about and if but right, we have other people that aren't at market either, and so we have to weigh that. I don't want it to be a contentious issue between the Albany County Sheriff's Department and everybody else. And hopefully that won't be an issue. But at least making that note for the future commissions to say, hey, this is, if this were to be approved, this is what the schedule looked like. You may or may not have the money, but that's your decision to make, you know.
You know, it's interesting. If you flip that around, it's probably not fair to make the sheriff's department the scapegoat or responsible for everybody's step and grade issues. The job classifications that we created in the last couple of years, I mean, none of that stuff ever used to exist. There was no way for an employee to know or predict or you know, so now we have grade, you know, job classifications and a range for each classification. So that way department heads and elected officials can help their employees know what they need to learn or what responsibilities they can take on to get more pay and those sorts of things. So because there are so many departments and elected officials, and because it's pretty hard to predict what the revenue would be in 10 years. To me, I don't see it to be a foolish thing. You know, if you're going to take the savings from CARES Act money, 85% of the, I think, between 80 and 85% of the salaries expenses are personnel or of our general fund budget. And so when I think in my mind about what kind of one-time things we could use CARES Act money on, or the results of the savings of CARES Act money, to me, to stabilize the most expensive and challenging part of our budget, which is personnel, is the thing to do with that. You know, and we don't have to decide that today, right? This is we're probably discussing this more than we have to today.
I know that I'm first on your list, but I also know that I think I haven't seen everybody else's budget requests, but just the nature of my department, I feel that mine is probably quite a bit larger than some of the other departments.
Yeah. Well, and I think I appreciate you thinking about the person lowest paid. I really think that equity piece is important for me. You know, it's tough to get by on 43 grand working full time. That's a tough deal. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And I'm available if you guys have anything else to.
Awesome.
The transparency is very, very refreshing because
It
it was
is.
not, we did not know. I'll be real honest with you. I think,
Yep.
you know, Amanda, when she was presented with salary increases, I mean, it was all, there was no running. I thought you would get, I think it's big needed. Thank you for that.
This is the best budget we've ever gotten from the sheriff.
Well,
That's my time
clearly,
here.
you can tell that you
Good.
put a lot of thought into this.
I'm glad.
So for the first time out, it's good.
Yeah, very good, Eric.
All right.
And I love that you eliminate the whole favoritism and the good old boy thing that was going on for way too long.
Yep.
Transparency is always best.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Look at us go. I thought David was late, but then we're a half hour early.
And it's so hard. I figured that there would be probably the most difficult. And so I don't know if he wants to listen and consider anything right now, or we're just going to go through. Our ultimate goal is if there are changes that you want us to implement. Build the budget and know where we're at, if we're not based on having to come back. But if it's totally practical, I'd be like to.
So have we submitted, thank you, any county road fund? Has Rob submitted anything to you for this fiscal year from the county road fund? Tracy, is that this 100 and whatever it is, 150 plus 10, 160,000? Has that been submitted or is that just a projection?
Oh,
That's
over on the
fiscal
road fund
2020.
sheet.
Never mind.
That is just a projection. So for this forward or next fiscal year, no, he hasn't. We were talking about it this morning.
Yeah.
But we haven't got a number together yet,
Okay,
just because the system's new. For this current fiscal year, he has given me some numbers in the neighborhood of $57,900 reimbursed for 2 projects that happened in fiscal year 21 that would help. So that would also increase that number I gave you of the 101.9% of the budget.
yeah, okay, awesome.
Well, the County Commissioners Association is trying to get somebody to sponsor a bill that would change the rules about the, the construction and maintenance fund so that it could be allowed to be used to purchase equipment, because people really aren't in the, governments really aren't in the habit of building new roads. We're mostly in the habit of taking care of the ones we have, and that requires equipment. So the Wyoming Contractors Association doesn't like that, because they want this set aside chunk of money for road contracts and, bridges and culvert type contracts. And they don't necessarily, they lobby the legislature for road and bridge departments not to take that in-house. And that would be why that money has that restriction. And to a commission, I don't know a single commission in the state that doesn't need that flexibility, so the message to the legislature is pretty clear from the County Commissioners Association. But what that would do in this budget, I don't know.
What we started doing to get away from that blanket transfer that got us in
Yeah.
trouble with the Road Standards Commission is that Rob tracks every single project that Road and Bridge guys work on, and all the costs associated from the equipment to the payroll and everything like that. And then if it's under 50,000, it doesn't have to go out to bid. So then when we're using it more as a reimbursement for those small little
Gotcha.
maintaining the road projects.
So he has to do more specific accounting to make sure that
And he's
if
got that
they pour
accounting
the
in place.
foundation for a culvert and put a new culvert in there,
Yeah, he's got that accounting in place. He can tell you exactly what it's gonna cost for a specific project
Right.
based on his guys. Now, if it, is something larger than that, like if they had to do 9th Street reconstruction again, that would definitely have to be a
Sure.
process beyond his scope of what the guys could do anyway.
And that would probably wind up in the, now I can't think of the acronym, that federal money. I'm on the thing.
The new one,
No, you know what I'm talking about, the federal money that the YDOT and the city, and we prioritize what roads gets used on. Why can't I think of that? I'm embarrassed. I know. I'm sorry. Don't try to think of it. Let's just keep going. It'll pop into our heads later.
at 3 a.m., that's usually when that stuff comes to me then.
Anyway,
So are there any questions that you have on this overall spreadsheet that has the general fund 1%, direct aid, county road fund, was any of that? Do you need an explanation from some of these guys about what you're seeing and why you're seeing it?
I'm not in there, Pete, as far as
Okay.
really asking questions. I'm absorbing as much as I can. I did meet with Tracy, and she explained some things to me where funds come and all, and that was very helpful.
Okay,
So, as we proceed, I'll probably have some questions, but I'm just even taking in from your experience and your questions and all to register some of that information.
just to let you know about the county road fund. This commission had taken about $500,000 in my first 2 years to help with the budget from that road fund. we received a couple of letters that said you shouldn't use the county road fund like that. And that's what he was talking about, the commissioners around the state. I've had problems because there's some inflexibility with the county road fund. So this year we decided not to do that 500,000, that we would take the county road fund and divide it into projects, and you can have up to 50,000 per project sponsored by your county. You just can't have 10, $50,000 projects and not use that road fund to hire other outside contractors. That's essentially what it was anticipated, I believe, with the county road fund, that you'd use it to hire contractors, to take care of your roads. That's not always workable. And so now we're just moving towards having Rob has an accounting system. So when we have, I don't know, a gravel pit that we go replace, take the gravel from that pit and replace a section of a road or repair a section of a road, he details that for the project. And then we will take that money out of the county road fund. We hadn't done that in the past.
Okay. Is that what we got dinged on
Yes.
earlier? Those
Yes,
letters? Okay.
that was that.
Okay.
I believe it's and we will with the understanding that is being done, and that is never occurred. And so. But we correct.
And it's incredibly fortunate that we have a surplus to work with this year, because we would not have 500,000 in planning projects for this last year if we had started midstream to be able to offset that funding. So planning just get right, and hopefully going forward, we'll do it within the scope, but still have that $500,000 if we need it for the budget in different ways.
Okay.
It'll offset Rob's budget, and then that'll offset general funds that we put towards Rob's budget.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, and it's interesting because the nasty grant comes from, now I'm going to struggle to remember the organization. It's like the county road oversight. It's the Road Standards Commission. And they, there's no enforcement action. It's basically like self-policing of county road fund use, right? So when we submit what we've done, and there are several other counties who use that to basically to rescue their budget, the poorest counties, then they get the nasty grant, but there's no penalty or follow-up. It's just like, why are you guys doing this? You know, and of course we would want to not do that. We don't have a high enough assessed valuation or enough, with the revenue sources that the legislature gives us. We just don't generate enough money in here. I think that it has everything to do with some really valuable property being tax exempt, and the operations of it being, all the consumables being sales tax exempt. And, you know, there's no payment in lieu of taxes from state lands and state agencies, right? So then we have lots of people who come to school who don't work, right? They're here to go to school. So, I mean, they consume things and pay taxes, but not to the degree that a business buying, you know, a pipeline company buying pipe does to go across some counties, right? So that's the story of our budget. in a nutshell.
Tracy, on this totals, or the GF 1% DA CRF spreadsheet, could you tell me why PILT is not on that list, in that sheet?
PILT is actually included in my revenue line item.
Okay.
So if
okay.
you went into the treasurer folder and into that, my revenue, it's in there.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
For local emergency planning.
No, I'm thinking of the,
I got it.
and the planners on there.
And
The-
CIS.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I have a list in my phone. I'm not gonna look at it.
And Tracy, does that account for the revenue decrease? A large portion of the revenue decrease from your department from this year to next year?
I'm not sure what you're asking me.
So it says your fiscal 2021 revenue is at 10,359,000. Your proposed revenue is 9,248,000. Is that mostly PILT, or is that a reduction in sales tax, or what are the projections?
Most of that would be the interfund transfers where we took a little over $1 million from direct aid. We took another portion from 1% optional, and then bring up that worksheet.
Jackie, it's USAC. Urban Systems Advisory. It's tough getting old. You know, I'll never forget old, what's her name?
Part where we took the salaries reserve to fund some of the increases this year. And then, so it's $1,015,256 from direct aid and $640,984 from 1% optional. And then 91,961 from salary reserve, which was 1.748 million.
Uh-huh.
So that is not in the budget for this coming year.
Super.
No transfers at all.
Okay, and then is it your understanding, and maybe just enough to be dangerous, that these ARPA funds, some of the money can be used for salaries for people that are in direct access to the public, right?
Yes, it's can be used for premium pay for employees. It's like $13 an hour up to $25,000 per employee for basically kind of a hazard frontline kind of pay, which is one of the things I did want to discuss at some point during the budget process, because the money should be coming any day for the first half, the first tranche of that American Rescue Plan funds, where I feel strongly and very passionately about doing something for our employees that stuck through the weirdness of being closed, being open, being closed, being open, being yelled at, being on the phone, all the weirdness that 2020 gave us. So
And that money is anticipated to be spent in the next 3 years, right?
it does not have to be spent in 3 years. It has to be obligated in 3 years,
It's obligated in 3 years.
which is kind of nice. I mean, if we already have a project underway, for instance, maybe a larger, grander scale broadband project or water project, and it's already encumbered and planned for, then we have additional time to complete that project.
Okay. So do we have to delineate who is a frontline staff and who isn't a frontline staff? Or is this something that could be used for salary adjustments? I can't remember. I don't believe it can be used for salary
I don't think for salary adjustments, it's like a one-time
bonus.
scenario, not necessarily a bonus, maybe like a stipend type
Right.
situation where in my mind, I keep going back to
Compensation.
$500.
It's like
Yeah.
an insurance payment.
My
Yeah.
mind keeps going like $500 a month for every month that they stuck through it with us. You know, if somebody didn't start till November, and they would only get that shorter portion, but, and I don't know if that's the answer or the solution, but my mind just keeps sticking.
Yeah, so somebody who's not a frontline staff would, or do we have everybody who's a frontline, technical frontline? I guess I don't know what the definition is.
We're all public employees and we all have the opportunity to serve the public in one way or another. Even the road and bridge guys who come across homeowners and have that possibility of being exposed in that neighborhood. Like Jackie and I's employees, we were probably busier than we ever were through COVID, and Jackie's staff, especially during the election cycle.
It's a tough year.
Yeah, it was, it was a crazy, crazy year by any standards.
Yeah.
But I think we can make really the argument that all of our staff was dealing with the public in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, awesome. Don't want to belabor that. I'm glad it's on your radar because it'll leave my radar very quickly, not intentionally, but seems the radar, I've got a lot of wind on my radar right now. So David, if you're ready, we're early and we'll just get you going. Good morning. The floor is yours, David.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so I've only got two new requests that weren't in the budget last year. One is for site-specific investigation peer reviews. And honestly, this was kind of in the budget last year under temporary services at $1,500. This year I've requested $3,000, and that's basically what this would be used for is if we do get the regulations changed and then we do have some development proposals that would require site-specific investigation peer reviews, we would have enough money to do two of those. It was about $1,500, the one that we did for the Tumbleweed project. And so I've got that request. And then some of our development proposal signs we're missing some that we can't get back. Also, we've got some that are kind of beat up, shot up, that we need to replace. So we're requesting $750 for that. And that should be able to purchase between 10 and 15 signs, depending on where we get them from. And so the development proposals, yeah, the big yellow signs or whatever.
You mean somebody's shooting at our signs?
Yeah, I don't know what it is about being out in the country and having a sign and everybody wants to shoot at it. That's never been appealing to me, but but it happens everywhere, you know.
They're too lazy to hang up targets.
Right.
They want to hit the dot on the eye or something without, it's just lazy and ignorance.
Yeah. So anyways, that's all I have for new requests. So.
Commissioners, any questions for David on the request or the budget?
The only question I have, and it's not a budget question, it's what sort of traffic are you getting in your office in terms of, developers, subdivisions, building permits, zoning permits and stuff like that?
I think we've got about, I'd have to check with Jenna, but about double the amount of zoning certificates just for outbuildings than we had last year. And that's just a lump sum. That includes, residential, like the principal structures as well as those. But there's about double that we had last year. We've got, we're always talking to somebody about a subdivision. It seems like there's constantly people wanting to be doing something in the meetings, and when they come in, we've got a few that are just kind of sitting there waiting for some stuff. And
so they're trying to learn what our process is.
Yeah. So it's been pretty busy. It's kind of like tapered off a little bit right now, but like first of the year, man, we were just getting hammered with everybody wanting to do stuff, and we still have a constant pressure of, new projects that's coming in. But I just don't feel it as much right now as I did 3 or 4 months ago. But
of the ones who come in, I got to believe that and sometimes somebody calls me and asks me, and I say, if you go see David, he'll explain it to you, because they can look up the regs. And they're actually not that complicated, but any questions they have to talk to you. So I'm curious of the potential developers who express interest. Some are learning and some are moving. They're, you know, they're going for it, right?
Right.
So I'm curious if you just off the cuff could guess what percentage of the inquiries and the learning sessions turn into actual somebody buying a permit.
Pretty high. I'd say 80-90% of people that come in eventually get to that point. If there's problems, they might be, okay, back off. We're not going to do that, you know, type thing. But
So
the
it's a
majority of
pretty
the
high
people, it's just
percentage.
when they come in, you know, that's,
Mhm.
we talk to somebody and they get it figured out, and then it could be next week we get something, it could be 6 months, could be another year before we see something from them. But it's pretty high percentage of people that come in and talk and people that do, so.
So not very many looky-loos. That's a pretty high percentage. I
Yeah,
figured it'd be
absolutely.
50%, not
Yeah,
80.
no, we have quite a few people come in and talk and then do something, so. Just win, you know.
Mhm.
David, are you fully staffed? Do you have everybody hired that you have?
So yeah, Jory, he's our new addressing coordinator. He just started today.
Oh,
And
okay.
Gary started last week for enforcement position, so we've got everybody we need at this point, I believe, so.
Awesome. And has the switch to the GIS, has that helped? Is that added, I guess, is it offloading now that Karen is up a couple months into the deal? Is that unloading some of the requirements that were kind of being falling to you guys because of the GIS being in one step or what?
Yeah, that's been helpful to have her do that, especially like vacation stuff. Although she's still kind of learning that, and I'm involved a little bit with the vacation stuff because we've got 2 or 3 that are pending, I think. So, but yeah, it's been helpful to do that. So,
Okay. You feel comfortable that you have what you need so that you guys can get the work done and not have to work Saturdays and not take vacations and that type of stuff?
You know, I think so.
Okay.
I think once we get Jory trained as the addressing coordinator and then get Gary going on some of the enforcement, that's going to take a huge pressure off of me and Joe, who have been kind of handling a lot of that. And Jenna's been doing some of the addressing stuff, which, you know, has caused a lot of stress for her, you know. So once we get these guys trained up, you know, here in a few months, I think we're going to be sitting pretty well. So, and I think Joe and me can handle, you know, all the other planning items that come in and not feel like we're, you know, burning the midnight or whatever, burning the candle both ends. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then your internet signal at your building, is it reliable? Is it fast? Is it not fast enough? Because we're, you know, Adam is talking about a way to increase broadband or increase internet speed. Give me your thoughts on that. You can be as honest as you want.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's fast. It's
Okay.
good that way. The only issue that we've had is just kind of, it drops. Like if I'll have like a GIS map, which is pulling from a lot of different files and then, you know, it sits there for 15 minutes and it drops, and then I have to close it down and pull it back up to get everything connected again. That's the only issue that we've been seeing. And I think that Adam's been looking at that. So, but other than that, everything else, it's smoking fast compared to what I got at home. So.
So that could be like a network thing, or
Yeah, I don't know what
where
it
it
is.
has to go
Yeah,
to
it's just,
pull that stuff together more than a speed thing. I don't know.
yeah, and it may just be my computer. I don't know. I mean, I don't hear a lot of complaints from my staff. So, but
Yeah, because there is ARPA money for broadband increasing, and I know Adam's got shared at least the beginnings of a plan
Gotcha.
to get more and faster internet service to our buildings at minimum.
Okay.
So you would be one of those buildings, I guess.
Cool. That'd be great. Yeah.
David, what is all in your advertising budget? Are you advertising permits? What is it that you advertise?
Oh, so yeah, we advertise any public application that comes through planning and zoning and you guys has to be advertised. So that's where the bulk of that money goes. We also use part of that advertising budget for our cleanup project that we do. We do tire vouchers and refrigerator vouchers so that people can do that in the fall. And so we do some advertising from that. But with all the permits that come in, it's like, it's been a busy couple of years. It's, we use that up pretty well, pretty quickly. But it ebbs and flows. If we have a slower year, then obviously we use less advertising. But
Yeah, I see that. 219 decreased that.
And is that just directly to the paper, or are there other online advertising that you do, David?
So the applications are typically just on or in the paper. I think we did use some of it for when we were hiring our employees. And so that went to, sometimes that goes somewhere else. But with the cleanup stuff, we do usually advertise with the radio as well. So, yeah. It's expensive, huh, Jackie?
Well, we haven't had community cleanup. It's spring and fall, so that we've missed 3 community cleanups since the beginning of COVID. And I've seen some people out cleaning up, but I think they just get together and go do it because they're sick of looking at it. Do you have any idea how that's going to go this year in the fall when it's county cleanup day?
Well,
maybe that's Brian Forrester.
So yeah, we're kind of talking about 2 different things a little bit. So the springtime, the city does that.
Yeah.
And they've been doing that, but it's just groups have to contact them. Like my church group, we actually contacted them and they supplied all the bags and vests and they picked up the garbage, which was awesome, So they do that part of it. And they also give out a voucher for residents that they can take in and dump off like 1 load of stuff.
So it's basically cleanup day, but spread out.
Yeah.
And they've created a way to make it happen.
So, and that's kind of, in the fall, we don't do the just regular cleanup anymore. The city went away from that and we don't do that.
It's just vouchers.
We do vouchers for tires and refrigerators and we give people like 2 or 3 weeks to use those. And so last year we didn't do a whole lot of, but last year was, kind of in the midst of the COVID stuff. So we didn't do a whole lot, but some years we get up there to where we're using all that money and, might need some more, but.
So they just hand the voucher to the attendant at the scale house.
Yeah. So we work with the city. We let them know when we're doing it. And they're totally fine with it. They take the voucher and then they invoice us the cost of the project or how many tires or vouchers or refrigerators that come in. So, yeah. It's been a very successful program in the past. This is our alternative to trying to enforce nuisance type stuff as we give these vouchers out to help them, these property owners. We usually send out letters to bad properties saying, hey, this is what we're doing. You can do this for free. Just, get a voucher. And so.
And that just comes to your attention, David, by neighboring, by nearby neighbors who have put in enough of a complaint.
People call, stuff that we see when we're driving around. So.
Does anybody ever volunteer of their own accord, or do you always get secondhand information as to who needs it?
It's mostly secondhand. So we get a lot of secondhand information for a lot of different things. So.
Sure.
So the moral of the story is be nice to your neighbors. So
Right.
and maybe they won't call on you. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I think we have our own line that comes in and it's, here's your complaint about your neighbor line. And just deal with that. And sometimes they're legit, sometimes they're not.
David, have you thought about a strategy for the enforcement? Are you going to focus on junk, for instance, or are you going to focus on buildings that don't have any documentation? What have you thought about what your strategy is, of what's the highest priority in your enforcement? Is it going to be just responding to citizens' objections to their neighbor, or?
I mean, that's how we've done it. It's been a kind of response. I mean, especially where we didn't have a position to do that. So Gary, we hired Gary Wilkin as our enforcement officer. He was our enforcement officer before he retired and did some other stuff, and now he's back. But he was pretty good about when he had a call or whatever, he'd go out and then he'd check out the area. So it'll be a little more proactive than what we did before. And we look for junk mostly, junk, and then you might get some phone calls for, zoning type violations that we look at, or even wastewater violations that we'll look at as well. So in the past, like when it was just us, it was more, somebody called and we went and did it, but now we'll have a little bit more leeway to do some proactive stuff as well as we did in the past. So
Yeah. If of your recommendations here, or your not recommendations, requests, could you prioritize those for me with the SSI be one, or with development of property signs be one? Which would be the first on your priority list there?
Well, that's complicated because it depends on what we do with the sites or what we do with the APOZ regulations. I mean, we may create regulations where we don't need these. We may create regulations where we will have more site-specific investigations. The development side thing, I think that would be my priority, just because when we had just recently, we were pretty much out of signs because we had them out with projects. And so I'd rather have a few more signs, I think. But the problem is if we did have some site-specific investigations and that didn't get approved, then I'd be coming to you guys to ask for money. And maybe that's okay if there's a little money somewhere to do a site-specific investigation here or there, instead of just having it in my budget sitting there just in case,
Okay.
So, but yeah, the development side is probably one. But,
Okay.
and even if you wanted to cut the site-specific investigation one, I mean, if we had $1,500 in it, I could do one.
Yeah.
And we've done one as a county since I've been working here. So, probably changing the regulations, that could change. So
Generally, the developer pays for that, or the applicant pays for that.
well, they pay for a site-specific investigation, but this would be paying for the peer review of the site-specific investigation. Yeah. And we could change our fee schedule to require them to pay, upfront a site-specific investigation review fee. I mean, that's a possibility.
So that it's revenue neutral.
Right.
Then on the expense side, you show the budget, but we'd have the revenue to take care of that.
Right. I mean, that's an option that would work too. So that just takes, process 45 days, to change that. So.
Any other questions, commissioners, for David? David, thanks. Thanks for being early, and we'll holler at you at some point in the process if we need a little more clarity, I guess.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Is it all right if we go out of order?
Yeah.
Chad, do you have less than 20 minutes, or,
Well, absolutely less than 20
well,
minutes.
would you like to go right now? Are you
Sure.
ready?
Absolutely.
32
seconds.
See you, David.
Thanks, David. Why'd you come so early anyway, Chad?
What's that?
Why'd you come so early anyway?
I'm always afraid you guys are ahead.
You put me into the meeting
Oh,
and then I can share from here
yes, I can. Now I can make you
for when
co-host.
it comes time for my thing.
Okay, you're in. And I'm gonna make you co-host. How about that?
Maybe Chad was a Boy Scout, so he's prepared.
Yeah.
That would be part of my life tradition.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I might end up having to go to do something. To making you co-host.
It gives me the button screen to share screen, so I can, I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Chad, thank you for being here.
Commissioners,
Take it away, please.
I'm actually excited to be here today, which is probably not something you're hearing from everyone, but I've been thinking about how this goes. In my line of work with what we do in our dynamic life, I tell folks that work with me, when you come to me with a problem, please come to me with a potential solution for that problem. So today, I think I have both those things. My problem is I could use a little bit more money for help for me. Last year was an extraordinary year, and the volume of work in my office was significant. I have a unique way that we can fill that gap is because we have so many volunteers, and they're essentially already employees that are unpaid. So we have the ability to compensate them for things that they do. We have the mechanisms to do that. We just the funding is something we're talking about today. So it's a small piece of money that I'd like to be able to have available to be able to compensate some of my folks to help me out when I get a big stack of stuff on my desk. So that's the problem we're faced with. And I think the request was $1,000. The solution I wanted to talk about, and that's kind of the exciting part that I wanted to talk about. When I took this office about, was it 4.5 years ago, I had a kind of a business plan in mind where my office would be able to generate some additional revenues. Our resources that we have in the county are frequently requested to assist on a national scale with fire incidents and more recently some COVID stuff nationwide. So we have a large amount of expertise in the county, and these resources are requested to go out. When they do go out and help out on a fire out of our district, they're compensated for that, and the county's made whole for the loaning of that resource essentially. So the employee is paid, the equipment is paid, all of our expenses that we would incur, i.e. workman's compensation or taxes, those are all paid by that agency that's requesting us. What I started a couple of years ago is, in addition to that, I charge an administrative fee that goes into general fund over and above all those other things. The idea was that was a small way we could generate some revenue from the folks that go out. And it was sort of I've given it a couple of years to see if the concept was going to come to fruition. This last year, it worked out fairly well. We had about $1.1 million that we were able to bill under that program. We charge a 4% administrative fee. So that generated a revenue of about $44,000 this year. That's not reflected on the most current statement because something came in very last minute that made up that gap. It shows 36,000. We had a large fire come in literally Friday of last week. So that's the solution. And I think that the program I have moving forward will continue to generate those revenues. And the idea was that over and above some of the expenses that we incur with that resource going out, we also have people in the clerk's office and the treasurer's office that increases their workload to work with those particular billing items, dealing with that money when it comes in, and then the clerk's office submitting payroll checks and reimbursement checks and all of those things. So we do have hidden costs that are associated with this program, and this 4% administrative fee was meant to address that. So that was my problem, and that's the solution I have. I anticipate the administrative fee will continue to do well over time. I've got the right people in place. In fact, we've got, as far as I know, as of last night, we have 3 resources out right now, 2 in Arizona and 1 in Utah that are working on fires. So yes. So time has begun.
It's already 110 degrees in Arizona.
Yeah, it's toasty down there and it's on fire. So there's some intricacies to this program, and if you have questions about that, I'm happy to answer it, but that's sort of the nuts and bolts of it.
So Chad, this request is enough, $1,000?
This may sound like I'm patting myself. I can be amazingly efficient with that $1,000 because our employees are already, we already have them under workman's compensation, so that's already taken care of. A lot of the overhead expenses for our employees is taken care of. So this if I have one of my experts in the field and I have expert logistics people, planning people, finance people that are part of our fire department, I can pay them a couple of hours to duplicate me. So I need, if I did it this year a little bit with one of my finance people, I would send her some documents and for her to process. She'd spend 4 or 5 hours on it, which is a massive amount of work, and just the money doesn't add up that fast when we're doing it kind of piecemeal like that, because she's a volunteer part-time employee. So I'm not bringing someone on as a part-time employee or something like that. I'm able to just compensate them for time spent. So it's very efficient that way, and we can get some stuff done. But that being said, if this program continues to develop, I'd like to try to turn some more of this money back into our rural fire program, because we are in need of funds out there. But so far it's going well. We'll see how it continues to go well.
Mr. Chairman, it might be useful to explain to Commissioner Ibarra when we work local fires in our own area of responsibility, the volunteers are volunteers. But when they get hired out, they get paid for the truck and the man, and people on the truck and the equipment. And so what used to happen is the county general fund, when those departments send their equipment out, the revenue that they bring back, they would use for tires and oil changes and maintenance, but generally whatever is left goes into their new equipment fund and sits there. And so the county general fund through the fire warden was subsidizing every department's truck fund by doing all the administrative, without help or compensation, right? So the administrative fee is something that, well, if the equipment doesn't run, there's no revenue, and there's also no extra work, right? It's directly related to the amount of work required to do the office side or the clerical side of the fires. And I don't know why we went so long without doing that, but it's been a really good thing.
It was an agreement between the state and the federal government that really spurred it, because so that 1.1 million that we billed, that was essentially revenues that we generated outside of the state of Wyoming. Anything in the state of Wyoming, we don't charge each other. So there was an additional $1.2 million that we did in business in Wyoming, thanks in part to the Mullen fire. But when they go out and like I said, they're compensated well. Our pay plan is well with the federal government. Our equipment is compensated well, and the equipment, if we send out an engine or like my county vehicle, those are compensated, and that goes into, as Heber mentioned, the kind of the truck maintenance repair fund. That's really the accounts that our rural fire departments have lived on. You can see that their annual budget in our budget is $3,000 per zone. 2 of those zones have 15 vehicles, and one of them has 2 vehicles. So $3,000 doesn't go a long ways. That's 2 tires on one of our big trucks. So the revenue that they've generated participating on local fires, that truck fund is a lot of their budget.
Was I fairly accurate?
Yes. So the administrative fee is a fairly new thing, and we have quite a few. I have about 15 people that are what we call overhead. They're fire management type personnel, and those are the type of people that this administrative fee is really is working out on. And those are the types of folks we have out right now. And along with when I disappear here in a little while, that's what I'll be doing as well.
Yeah, a quick question. And when you rent out one of those vehicles, what percentage of that goes to the use of that vehicle for that fire? And then do you recapture a certain percentage and put it towards replacement of that vehicle?
So all the resources are paid at a different rate. As a kind of something to gauge this by. A Type 6 engine, which is like an F450 with the fire package on it, that pays with the stuff we have on about $82 an hour. So in a 2-week period, that's maybe $15,000-$18,000 for the use of that truck. That all goes into that zone's truck maintenance account. And over the year, that was also paid on the Mullen incident because we were in a cost share on that. A lot of all these other local incidents that when extended, that was also paid. So I guess 100% goes into that truck maintenance fee. We use that truck maintenance fund, and I use that kind of loosely as our main funding for the department. So if we need radios or we need personal protective equipment, or we need to replace a vehicle or repair a vehicle, that's the account that we're working in and out of on all those zones. And they all have their own account for each of the zones.
It basically all gets set aside except for.
Right. It's so I guess 100% would be the direct answer to your question. It all goes into truck maintenance.
Minus 4% for.
Right. Well, no, the 4% is above the
Gotcha.
So this administrative fee is over and above all of that. And we charge the 4% administrative on all expenses we have on that fire, which would include travel, personnel, equipment, everything.
Now I understand. I didn't understand what you were saying about the feds, but basically they're not making us take that out. They're paying $82 an hour and we're not taking 4% of 82.
No. It's over and above.
They allow us to charge the administrative fee.
We're already made like 100% whole on our expenses for loaning out that resource. This is the 4% over and above that that we can put into the pile.
How fun. I didn't know that. I thought for some reason I thought it came out of it.
No. And I really, like I said, it's exciting for me because I think that, the trajectory that's going on, I think that a personal goal of mine is I'd like to have revenues that are equivalent to my budget. And then the people of this county are able to receive rural fire protection for free. And I think that that's possible. So we'll continue along those lines and see if it works out. Proof of concepts work so far.
It's super cool. And then that fund would also blows up, right? You need a new F-150 with a fire package. There's money in that account to purchase.
So those zone accounts have accrued. Okay. Some of them that have an engine that's fairly active. Sebile is a good example. They have a fairly significant amount in there. A large portion of that we're likely going to use as matching and additional funds when we come to get the Sebile fire station built. We have a grant for that. So we'll use it for that type of thing. Garrett, on the other hand, that has not been all that active, has a fairly small truck account, but it's still more than what their annual budget is. Laramie Peak does fairly well as well. So in an active fire season, when we have engines out and guys are out doing the thing, we accrue those pretty well. And then we're able to have something, if something goes bad, which it does. The $82 an hour sounds expensive, but the trucks are expensive to keep out and maintain. We break a lot of stuff. Fire's hard on trucks, and we need tires constantly, and pumps break, and everything's very expensive. So, it works out. We were able to use that for matching funds, things like that.
Sure. Is there anything else? Well, thanks for the work and thanks for the vision of that. I appreciate it, Jackie or Tracy. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We won't see you at noon. Good night.
We do have a meeting this afternoon.
Yeah, 3:30. Yep. Christina, we're a little early, but if you're ready to go, let's let the floor be yours and take it away, please.
Perfect. Mine is pretty simple. The changes in my budget, there's 3 of them, and I'll just go over them briefly. One is to my office supply budget. It's set at $550. I'm asking for $750. It's simply because I broke my office chair. I need a new chair, and the office chairs are very expensive. And I usually run close to that $500 mark. So the addition is to just buy a new office chair for my office. The other 2 changes are to my background check line item and my drug screen line item, bringing both of those from $1,500 to $2,000. As you guys have been made aware, we've had a significant turnover over the last year and a half, and I foresee that it will continue, especially with some of the changes in the sheriff's office. And so all of those cost money, and I'm actually over budget on both of those line items currently. So the $500 a piece for each of those, I'm projecting will keep me from going over those line items for this next budget year.
We hope.
We hope. And so, that's something that's unpredictable, but we just hired 4 new deputies. We're gonna have 4 to 5 more to go. And then that's if no one else leaves or retires. And we know of 2 retirees coming later in the year. So it'll just be a matter of time before I need that extra money. So those are the only changes to my budget. Any questions?
What were the amounts for back office supplies and background checks?
So office supplies, are you asking what I'm asking for?
Yeah.
So my office supplies went from $550 to $750.
Okay.
And then my background check and drug screening both went from $1,500 to $2,000. So $500 a piece. So essentially I'm asking for an additional $1,250 in my budget.
Awesome. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Christina?
Nope.
I would just ask you, if you have any thoughts on the sheriff's proposal for the employees there.
You're talking about the salary increases? So I've only looked at it once. My general thought is, I understand that it makes sense. I'm not opposed to the salaries per se. We definitely compete with LPD and Wyoming Highway Patrol. Not only do they pay a little bit more than we do, but the deputies have the opportunity to go right to the streets there versus here they start in our detention center. And so anybody that wants to be on patrol, if they get an offer from one of those 2 agencies, if they're underpaid here and want to be on patrol, they leave, and then we're out $10,000 to $15,000 in training costs anyway. So briefly looking at it overall, I don't see any issues with it. And I think it'll bring us more in line with the other agencies within Wyoming.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, and probably we are thinking. But I just wanted to hear the HR perspective, maybe how it fits in with, the challenge with our step and grade is that law enforcement is sort of its own animal. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so I just was curious what your thoughts are on the picture of
And looking at
the
those
salary,
salaries,
set aside, for, what I'm saying?
yeah, looking at those salaries, I would have to pull to compare it, but if my memory serves me correctly, because I looked at it right when I got back from FMLA, those salaries actually are within the same pay grade scale that he's currently in. They're just on the max amount side. So in theory, if we still fully fund that salary grade, I don't think he's asking for a huge amount of money. The only difference is that what I talked to all the ladies in here about was sustainability, the money that he's wanting to use versus the money that we have in the general fund, and making sure that we can sustain that money long-term for those salaries. So other than that, I don't really foresee any concerns at this point. I'm just being aware that, that money we're going to have to sustain year after year.
Sure.
I guess, Christina, just overall, last year we gave money to increase people's salaries to the department heads, to the elected officials. Have you done another research on what that did to most people's within their market value?
No, because so the commission's only made 2 large, right, this will be year 3, correct?
Right.
So you guys have only made 2 large amounts, totaling right around 500,000. And so for the amount of money that we need in that scale, it's pretty minimal. And we only gave small percentages to each department. And so we still have quite a ways to go to bring them up in the scale. Off the top of my head, I couldn't give you any percentages though.
Okay.
And not every office got the same amount either. So it's all different. And I don't know actually what got distributed. So you guys gave the money and then Jackie's office dispersed that out. I'm not quite sure which percentages went to which offices.
But we don't have any unfunded mandates.
Yeah. So, and my hope is that this year for the budget cycle, you guys will be able to put aside another good chunk of money to go into that salary reserve. Now, whether or not we choose to distribute it, that'll be up to the commission. But even if it's in there, that's just one step closer for us having all those positions fully funded. So,
Yeah, and I guess my hope is if we put that money, it goes to where we would like it to go.
Yep.
And not, if somebody's at 90% of market value and somebody's at 50%.
Sure.
My personal goal would be to give more of it to the person at 50%. Right?
Exactly.
And I just kind of want to know that that's happening.
Yeah. And so really it's up to each individual office currently. So what has happened in the past is you guys gave them a set of money. So let's say Jackie's office got $50,000. It was up to Jackie on how she distributed it. And so I guess without you guys giving that direction, they really have the ability to distribute it how they want for those employees. So there may be discrepancies like you're saying where somebody's at the 90th percentile versus the 50th because it's been up to the departments in the past on how they want to manage that.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting there is. I just would like to know.
Yeah.
If that's how that's going, because this is a really nice way to just give it to the department heads and elected officials and say, you guys know your offices.
Right.
But then we have to verify
Yeah.
that what's happening is indeed what we hope to have happened.
Yeah, and it's my understanding.
Did you put that directive in past years?
No.
I don't believe so.
No, and it's my understanding too that some of the offices didn't even give out raises last year. So they just moved the money into their salary line item to bring all their positions to fully funded. And so I think we have a mixed bag. We have some departments that didn't issue raises. We have some that gave it all away last year. And I can definitely reach out and give you a better idea of where we sit. I just don't know the answer to that off the top of my head because once it goes to them, it's up to them to decide how to distribute it.
Super.
It would be hard for us to monitor that from here, sort of micromanaging, because everybody has different personnel, different responsibility and training needs. And like promotions or position changes, I would never want to deal with that.
Yeah.
The only thing I guess I would want to know as a commissioner is if somebody was having trouble implementing it or needed help to know how it works. And in that case, I would just send them to you anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
and I guess the other thing, Pete, I guess to give you a little bit of reassurance is I kind of monitor anyway because to some degree. So if Tracy came to me with a salary authorization year after year after year for the same employee and nobody else in our office was getting increases, I would ask her about it and say, what's going on? Why are you giving Sunny, $500 every few months an increase and then nobody else is? And so we kind of have that dialogue and there hasn't been any red flags for me up until this point where a department is favoring one employee over the other. So most like Rob, for example, Rob Fisher, he already handed in a stack of salary authorization forms that he'd like to see for his staff for July 1, and it's across the board. He's pretty much given everybody an increase. Some get more than others depending on longevity and things of that nature, but he's chosen to do that for everybody. So we kind of, there's checks and balances for me to question, if Tracy was doing something like that. So I'm not aware of anything off the top of my head where there's such a large discrepancy like that.
Yeah. I don't suspect there is, but just kind of to have those numbers available if somebody were to ask you from the general public, hey, you gave away this amount of money last year in salaries. How did that go?
Yeah.
And to have the ability to answer and say, well, we brought up everybody that was at 50% of market value to 63% of whatever that number is. And that's what we targeted. That would be a nice answer for me to be able to give them.
And it's something easy that we can pull because we track all of the changes in our system. So it's an easy report for me to pull and figure out who all got increases and then figuring out what that percentage is. It'll just take a little bit of time to put it together.
Thanks, Kristen. Appreciate it. Commissioner Barrow?
No.
Sure, it's anything? Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you were to prioritize your additional requests. What would you put at one? I'm guessing the office supplies because the chair, nobody wants to sit on a bad chair.
Well, so right now I've actually stolen an office chair from district court. They've let me borrow one, so I do have one currently. And so, I mean, it can continue, but I need to return it at some point.
Yeah.
The priority is probably the drug testing and the background checks, just because the amount of people we're hiring, I don't ever want to have to come in and ask to amend my budget. And we run so many checks that, and that's a large portion of the budget that it could very easily put me over.
Thank you, Christina. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So everybody need a break, or would you like to go right to the treasurer's?
Treasurer's here.
Okay. Let's come here.
Thanks,
That's
Christina.
10:45, 10:50-ish.
I don't know.
Okay, 10:45 then.
I can't speak for anybody else.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
I would love one, only because I didn't bring one. Yeah. Big Campbell County. Similarly, so. Similar talking. Our general fund. It's interesting. And I Tea Party. And they're all socialists. And they can't realize. The Democrats in this county agree with spending the should still out there. It's not. Because fire you know, so what looks like this, not volunteer. Yeah. Fire. And also. It's not.
What's that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, how'd that go?
Really good. Tuesday, and I ended up going across the street to the store.
Oh, darling.
Yeah.
And also.
Excuse me, Heber, are we on a break?
We are.
I'm gonna mute you guys, okay? You'll need to unmute when you come back.
All right, thanks.
You bet. Pete, I went ahead and paused the recording and put your mic to mute.
Hey, David,
Yes, sir.
to share, I made Tracy a co-host. And to share her screen, do I still go to the portion of the screen and then share that? Or how would you like that to be done?
Actually, if you could, so she's going to her folders that we brought up over on the other machine that you're controlling.
Yeah, the other machine doesn't have Excel, so we couldn't present them.
Oh,
From
stand by.
But she's
format.
from where the county attorney sits is where she is sitting right now.
Okay, stand by.
Okay.
Stand by.
Thank you so much.
Do you need water?
Nope, I've got this and then I've got my Yeti too, so. Thank you.
Again, just make sure she's muted and make sure her speakers are turned on. In case there's a system speaker.
Okay, Tracy, on your machine, since you're co-hosting and sharing, you just got to make sure that your speakers and your mic is turned off.
I think I told it that I was using phone audio.
Okay, so if you want to go ahead and select what you want to share,
Do I need to hit share screen first?
yes.
No, I might be able to point my mic at you.
I think it's.
Well, they just don't want the computer mic on because it'll backfeed through. You can only talk to these.
Oh, that's looking good.
All righty.
I don't want that.
Love it. It's the old white with brown plate from about 1975.
That'll work. I don't know how to change it from that.
How did you get all the 2066s? Who was that? Somebody was saying, was a license plate holder.
Probably, but Paul probably, I guess. Because that's I don't know that was certain. We don't
Might
have
be-
records. but we
Might be
have
her
the-
very own. Right? Oh, those are lost somewhere in paper
They're-
form.
Well, they're probably at the permanent records of the state. We just don't have a. Nobody's got time for that.
Right.
All right, Tracy, well, the floor is yours whenever you're ready. Jackie, are you ready?
Does David need? to be-
David, are we recording? Looks like, no, looks like we're paused. Super.
Perfect.
All right, so I can actually speak quickly here. I'm gonna go to, obviously, you know, I'm the Albany County Treasurer.
Huh?
Okay, so the county, we receive approximately about $13 million in revenues for the year, and you can see that great big green chunk. That's what my office takes in. That doesn't include any of the other departments, revenues or anything like that. We do collect about $10 million for the general fund. And earlier, Pete, you asked me about why there was a decrease in my revenue. And if I take out those interfund transfers that we did, it's actually an increase of $637,000. So it's actually a little better than, with apples to apples, it's better than it, we
Okay,
think. This is- You can get my steps in. All right, so our expenditure budget is pretty minimal considering how much money we take in. Our personnel costs include 1 deputy, Sunny. I have 3 treasurer assistants, one treasurer assistant, 2, and 1 accountant. And then I have some non-personnel expenditures, as everyone does, travel, mileage, dues, advertising, tax notices, office supplies, and equipment maintenance. So one of the big things of our job duties or my statutory duties is the motor vehicle transactions. And you can see that we take in a lot of transactions. So for the previous fiscal year, we did 47,284 motor vehicle transactions. This year, we're on track to do 49,000. A number of these can probably be associated to COVID. And we had, I don't know the exact numbers, but we did have several people from Laramie County that didn't want to wait in their line over there that came over here. Whether they'll stay with us when we send them the renewal notices, that's yet to be seen. I'm hoping they stay here because we'll take their money.
I find that to be totally awesome. Can you explain to Commissioner Ivera what the state's rules are about registering cars in whatever county?
Sure, yes, you can register your car in any county of Wyoming, long as it's a renewal. Now, if it's a new plate change year, or you want to have a plate from your resident county, you need to have that done in the county you reside, which also can be done through the mail though. But so whichever county you register in, they're going to keep the money for your county fee. So Laramie County residents coming here to renew, we get to keep their money. So we're happy to do so.
And that happened with them being closed, right?
Yes.
Last year that you got a lot of that.
The next thing that we do is sales tax. And we are also on track for an increase in those transactions. Sales tax, I think, has been really good for us because people got stimulus money and they were paying their past due sales tax. There was also from, like GM, and they had the initiatives of, buy a new vehicle, no payments for 4 months. And that really helped. And a lot of people financed those sales tax in. But we do a lot of those. And you can see that the total sales tax collected has gone up considerably as well. So the price of the vehicles people are buying has increased as well. All right, next is our property tax. I think everybody knows that's our biggest revenue is our property tax. So our gross number for property tax is projected to be about 34 million, but that has to be split through the mill levies. That goes to the school district, the hospital, the city, Rock River, all those mill levy entities. But that's a number of transactions as well. As we're looking at maybe 29,465 for this year.
Yeah.
29,000 transactions. Did I say 34,000? Oh,
You know, at some point it would be good. Commissioner Ibera's brain is going to get full, but at some point it would be good to explain the breakdown of how much of the total property tax bills go to the schools versus the mill districts versus the county general fund.
I could easily bring that up. It's in our audit when I write the MD&A, I break it down there with both a graph and a pie chart as well.
Yeah.
It's fun. Numbers are fun. Anyway, so the total number of all those transactions is about 91,012. On average, I have 6 employees. My accountant doesn't always do transactions, but she kind of fills in when need be. So if you look at an average, that's 15,000 transactions each person per year, or about 8.2 million. But this doesn't include all the transactions that we do, because we do overpayments, we redeem tax liens, we do error corrections because we're human, we make mistakes. On the accounting side, it doesn't include all the ACHs that we take. All the money from the state generally comes in through an ACH and through the federal government. The state ACHs say, state of Wyoming, X number of dollars. And then we get to go figure out what it is. Our credit card transactions, we reconcile those monthly to the bank statements, and our credit
They don't
card.
send you a detailed
No, they do not.
description of what it's for.
They do not. And I'm glad Bailey's in the room, because if it weren't for Bailey, half the grant money, we wouldn't even know where it goes. So thanks to Bailey and a mutual worksheet that we put together. I think Ty made the worksheet. Bailey maintains it. We know where to put the grant monies thanks to Bailey. So credit card transactions, those obviously during COVID have probably, I'd say, at least tripled. So there's that additional reconciling duties there that is pretty arduous. And I hear complaints daily about that, because different cardholder agreements have different timelines for payments. And so what we process today doesn't mean we're going to get it tomorrow or the next day. It could be even, 5 days. We also write checks for all the jury trials. So every time there's a jury trial, there's 50 checks right there that needs to be written. The checks for the mill levies, overpayments, various things that need to be paid. We receipt in all the department revenues. So when Jackie is at the end of her month and she balances her books, we take her money and deposit it into her revenue accounts. We balance all the cash and reconcile all the bank statements for the county. We work closely with the auditors, and we assist in the grants department for revenue reporting in any way we can.
What do you do with mystery? Like from the state or the feds?
We, crazily enough, we kind of have a place where we kind of park mystery money under the name of mystery money, not exactly that, but eventually somebody will come say, hey, has anybody seen my forest patrol money, or whatever the case may be? And then it'd be like, yeah, if you let us know ahead of time, we could have let you know as soon as it came in. So most everybody, we've kind of got on that plan where, hey, I'm expecting whatever dollars for revenues, and they will let us know, and then we can be prepared and proactive on that. So I do have a few budget increase requests. My non-personal requests are fairly nominal. $1,140 is what they total to. Dues, GASB, which is Governmental Accounting Standards Boards, went up $100. So that's to cover that. Advertising, I have a statutory duty to advertise all the delinquent property tax in the county before I sell it at our annual tax sale. Advertising is expensive. I think that's been a theme throughout everybody's presentations today. One of the things we could do if we had to is the very first advertising, we advertised personal property tax and mobile homes. We're not statutorily required to advertise those, but it does increase those types of property tax payments to come in the door. I don't have an exact number. I know Sunny calculated it for me, but does increase the tax flow into the office.
Making it worth.
Worth it, yeah, it offsets it. And we do collect $20 for every account that we advertise. We have tried to get that amount raised through legislature, but they're kind of against raising those fees to do so.
So if I don't pay my taxes, the legislature won't let you collect more of a fee for you to collect later.
Correct. Right now.
That's a user choice fee. You don't
Yeah.
have to pay it.
Yeah, I mean, just pay your property tax and then you'll save on interest and advertising. I like that thought. Saves us time and paper as well. The tax notices, this is where we send out our property tax notices and then also our motor vehicle renewal notices. Now, the motor vehicle renewal notices aren't statutorily required. They're considered a courtesy card. But if I took those away, I would have a mutiny and probably, pitchforks and everything chasing me down the street because everybody relies on them, including myself. But those, the number of cards, because, Laramie County or the various people registering everything has increased overall. So here I am being a squeaky wheel now. Year 3, asking for that 7th person to backfill my office. I kind of exhibited how busy we are in everything we do. And as you both, or all three, know this morning, I also gained some duties for a little while. And this is where I'm asking for your consideration. I am asking for my 7th person. This person will help cover lunches, vacations, sick coverage, as in right now, if somebody's on vacation, so one more person calls in sick, because that was a real risk during COVID. Well, even any time, because people can get sick at any time. That leaves nobody able to go to lunch. It makes Sunny and I pull away from our regular duties and cover the front, which we're not opposed to. Sometimes it's kind of fun to help customers and get away from budget reports and presentations, but it's not the core of our duties either. The person can also help answer phones because our accountant is answering phones in the middle of her duties. And as I kind of mentioned, the help relieve non-front counter staff, which is Sunny, myself, and Lindsay. One of the other things is I do have a staff member that will be going on maternity leave in October. So that's at least 6 weeks that nobody can ever go on vacation,
Or
be
just
sick, go to lunch, do anything. And during October is also our annual county audit generally, which ties me up with auditors with a revolving door at my door for that. This would also allow me to take my treasurer assistant too, who is very good at mashing data. She can move it back to working on her bigger projects, which is inventory, creating training manuals, and also she does statistics for our office. This will also alleviate Sunny, my deputy, to do more administrative and accounting functions and to be a backup for our accountant and additional reporting. And with this additional reporting, we would like to be able to create our own reports to put on the website for statistical information on sales tax, property tax collections, and the various things that are currently on OpenGov, which we could do away with OpenGov, which is $6,000 a year. And it's very time consuming to update. And I think Amanda could probably help me testify to this, that it is super time consuming. So anytime we add a new fund and new counts within that fund, it takes quite a while to map it through the system of where it goes, whether it's general government or grant or health grant or public safety.
So it's not really.
It is not. And it's.
I think what I'm hearing you say is you'd rather generate and post those reports your own self.
Yes. And what we could post at this point with the technology that we have would not be as interactive as OpenGov, but it would be more timely. Currently, if you look at OpenGov, the last time it was updated was 2018. And that has been one of my duties prior to even being elected to update it, and we just don't have the time. We're busy and we are raking in the dough. That's what we're doing.
We're paying for that service and we don't have the manpower to put the information out there.
That is correct. We could, given if we have a seventh person to help alleviate other duties, we could perhaps maybe work towards incorporating that, but it is a lengthy process. I think I can make that work with my office staff, but I can't commit any staff from Jackie's office for that. That would be more for Jackie to speak towards as well. So my current budget is currently $422,000. The non-personnel requests are $1,140, and the new person would be $36,828. This is, I feel, a minimal increase considering our budget has remained mostly the same. We've only increased approximately 2% per year, but our transactions and revenues have increased more than that. I think this would also help us make more efficient, and we can get the additional reporting and other information out there. And if I had to prioritize them, they're all number one.
Tracy, bringing in this assistant at 36, is that 36 plus? Is that basically where that position was being paid back in 2017?
Yes, I haven't changed any of the starting salaries. But they're actually starting salaries 30,000, and the 6,828 would be any benefits as well. Benefits and FICA, Medicare, retirement, those items.
Do you have a way of tracking clicks on OpenGov?
Yes,
Who uses OpenGov?
nobody.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
There's sometimes a random one that will show up from maybe California, which I think is OpenGov, clicking in to see if we're using it. If I sign on, it'll show me using it, so it'll show that. But other than that, nobody has been logging on.
Oh, you're saying that OpenGov clicks on our site to see what we're doing with their product?
Correct. Yep. And they've also had some staff turnover. We have had, I think, in the last year, 3 different people contact us wanting to get to know us, which kind of concerns me that we have 3 new people in a year's time. I mean, maybe with COVID, they've moved on or did other things, but that's a lot of turnover for
Like
one
an
account.
rep.
Yeah.
You know when that account comes up, or that contract comes up to pay again, is it July?
What our rate is.
Okay. Seems like the reports you guys are already producing, if we could find a way to present them, that would be a nice way to just to save $6,000 when nobody's using it anyway. And if it's 2018, it's no good anymore.
Right.
Quite honestly.
I have posted sales tax reports and graphs on my office Facebook page, and those are the items that get the most notice and clicked on the most. And I mean, I don't have a huge following on my Facebook page because Sue really wants to pay taxes, but it's just part of life.
Yeah.
But when it comes to those sales tax reports, they are interested.
I think generally in the past, the request has come when it's an election year by candidates that want to see previous budgets from a particular department. But, we may get some extra requests in this next fiscal year, but that's easy information that can be generated by posting instead of.
Right. Well, I think about the reports you guys generate monthly. I think it'll come to us, that will be in the packet, just another opportunity for people to look at it, whether it be on your site or Jackie, your site, or whatever piece it would be. That would be monthly, right? And instead of 3 years back, we'd be a month back at the latest, so.
And we do like to take our data and turn it into graphs. Most people are visual and can understand a sales tax increase from a graph much easier than going through all the numbers.
Yeah.
You know, you can make them colorful and they stand out and take meaningful information out of it, away
Yeah.
from it.
I'd like to have something in place so that if we were to do that OpenGov, we went right to something, or maybe co-publish toward the end of OpenGovs and then just drop OpenGov if we find that it's not useful and that we have more people clicking on your charts and graphs.
Yeah, I can bring some examples.
Super. Yeah. Mr. Richardson or Mr. Ibarra, anything?
Curious if there's a way sometime in the next 45 days for us to get calculations of what, $500 or $600 million of private capital coming into our county would do to our sales tax and property tax revenues, and kind of the implications that would have for the hospital, the library, the fair board, the fire district.
I believe our
The
sales
school district,
tax,
the city, and the rec board. Maybe that's all.
with the
Maybe not.
property. I mean, those entities don't receive the benefit of sales tax, but property tax,
Right.
absolutely.
The mill districts, I think is what.
Yeah. The sales tax, I think, would be comparable because we did have whichever wind farm we discussed at mid-year review that changed out the blades. That, I think that was a big part of our increase in sales tax for
I
this
claim
year.
that.
Yeah. And then the property tax, if we know exactly what the assessed valuation will be at the state level, I mean, we can easily calculate the mill levies. We have worksheets that just plug it in.
Because the state assesses
Yes.
those
Yeah.
special industrial.
Yeah. And that's one other item that's in my revenue that I wasn't planning on talking about my revenue, but that's one item that I have a very conservative number in there. I know at one time Grant expressed 1% to me, but I don't want to necessarily go with his percentage yet until I've heard back from him, which I'm still waiting to hear from him, but I imagine any day now. But that number for the property tax could very well increase what is calculated into the property tax revenue. Any more additional questions?
Not for me. Commissioners?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tracy.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome. Glad I could overwhelm you with numbers.
Yeah. Bailey, if you're ready, we'll get you up and running and then welcome back. It's good to see you.
Thank you, you guys too. That's tough to follow after Tracy's nice PowerPoint. Let's see, as Commissioner Ibarra, I don't know if you know, I do have two separate budgets. I have what I call my office budget, and then I have the match budget. So I'll go over both of them with you guys because there are some changes in both. So the first one is the office budget. Overall, it's very similar to last year. The only increases were mainly taxes and benefits. I am requesting at this time a position for what would be considered the grant writer. As you guys have known, I've been out the past few weeks on maternity leave and haven't come up with a plan yet to move forward with the grants department, but I'd like to have the option I like to have some options, I guess. So I'd like it in my budget. It'd be a $30,000 salary with about $6,903 in taxes. This is budgeted for a part-time position. and sorry, a full-time position. However, I don't know if that's necessarily the route we're gonna go. We've had multiple discussions about the grants department over, I guess, the past, actually, ever since I've been here, really. But this would just give us the option to figure that out within this grant year, or sorry, within this fiscal year. Any questions on my office budget?
So interestingly, that you would talk about that, the city on the group that I'm working with is looking to maybe cost share a position with
Okay.
grant writing. And so they're really interested in that. They've held off on getting a grant because they don't have enough work for 40 hours. But
Mhm.
if that was something that we would like to cost share with them, I think they would be really amenable to that idea. So one of those things where we could all benefit from a little collaboration. And they consequently, and you know more about this than I do, but I could suspect that they write very similar grants, right?
Yeah, a lot of the grants we apply for, it can be like counties, cities, states, it just, especially those federal grant levels. And then for any state grants, they usually narrow it in on if the county is gonna apply or a city's gonna apply. But a lot of the writing is very similar. The management's the same, to my understanding. So it does, it would be a good match in my eyes. So.
I guess the question is, can we sew up that conversation, have a direction in 3.5 weeks by the time we approve our budget?
Well, if she puts in a placeholder, then we would not need, and if we were to approve that placeholder, then we wouldn't need to sew that out.
And
Right away.
just so you guys know, I do have to be out again till July, so I'll be here till Thursday,
Okay.
unfortunately. So yeah, but I was putting that in there to give us some options, basically.
Okay. Awesome. Commissioner Barrett, anything? On the office part of rates? All right.
We good? Okay, so with some of the grants, not all the grants, they do require a match. Every time we go in for an application, we present that to you all and we tell you what we need requested in the match, and then you guys can either approve, deny, or we can make adjustments. A lot of these numbers in my match budget, you guys have already approved when we brought you guys the applications. So some of them you do still have to stick with because you've already committed those funds, basically. Would you like me to go over it line by line, Commissioner Gosar, or?
Could you maybe either delineate the ones that we've already committed to, or the other way, the ones, highlight the ones we're not committed to? Commissioners, what would you like to see?
I'd
Which
like to
one?
know the new ones.
The new one, okay.
Okay. Give me just a second.
That's the shorter list. And the most fun to talk about.
I don't. Actually, I don't have anything that's new that you guys haven't seen in applications already within the past year. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, thank you. The one item that is unknown for my department at this point is the engineer. I know that you guys had just approved contracting with an engineering company last week. I have put in $50,000. And at this point, I only have one project that's finishing up. So what this would be for is to finish up that whatever Bill Gorman won't be able to finish. And then for whatever is coming down the road. I don't have anybody coming to me right now talking about any big projects. However, it is, the beginning of a fiscal year and that could change by the end of the fiscal year. But I do have $50,000 in as a placeholder. I think that should be okay for this year because I haven't heard any talk. But it is an unknown line item for me.
So to me, we book the potential expenditure on this, on the budget expense side. And lots of grants, projects pay for some amount of engineering. So it looks uglier than it is because we only spend money almost if we get reimbursed or.
A lot of like the upfront.
There's no revenue calculation in there because we don't have any projects to assign,
Yeah.
the engineering portion to, right?
Yeah, and a lot of like the upfront costs of, bringing the engineer out, like, okay, what are you guys thinking here? Helping write that application, the grant doesn't pay for. That is something that does need to come out of my match account. But again, nobody recently has come to me, and I've been out a few weeks, nobody recently has come to me saying, hey, I got this project going on. I do know of I know that the soccer club's still trying to do some more soccer fields out by the fairgrounds. I know Rob in the back of his mind might have a road project, but I don't think he's ready for one yet, or I don't think he is ready to move forward on one yet. But I think there's some things out there, but nobody yet has been coming to me. So I think 50,000 should be good for this year for that. The other thing I do need to bring to your attention is the north entry here. When it was originally budgeted, there were 4 SLIB grants involved. Two of the grants are newer than the other 2, and it looked like what Ty had been trying to do was kind of repurpose those older funding just to spend them out. I've been trying to get a hold of SLIB for honestly the past year, and then of course they've gotten some COVID money they've been working with. So what I have a call into him, and he's finally working on it, but looking into, is this okay to use some of these funds? The courthouse north entry grant we've spent out, I just need to request reimbursement. We have a courthouse security grant that was used in another way, and it should be able to be used in this way. I can't find the paper trail for it though, and I don't want to move forward with it until I have the paper trail. So again, that's what my contact at SLIB is looking into right now, and that is about $61,000.
You don't know what the file's called.
Oh no, I've looked through everything and I just can't find where it may have been saved or what happened to it. So I'm double checking before we go ahead and spend that fund. The other thing is before the emergency north entry grant, there was a courthouse fluid chiller grant. So not the one that just broke recently, but there was a previous one. With the match for that, it was $224,000 that we were going to be using for that. I've talked to Bill Gorman, and that's going to come in under, that portion's coming in under budget, but the whole total project is not coming in under budget. But that means these grant funds can only be used for that chiller portion. But if it's coming in under budget, then whatever else remaining needs to come from another fund. So looking at my numbers, there is still a little bit of money that we haven't used yet that was previously budgeted for the entire project. But what I need to help from you all in finding is anywhere between 130,000 to 190,000, depending on if that courthouse security grant is approved to be used for that north entry. To finish paying this project.
Because of change orders.
Because of, I guess, I think when this budget was originally set up, it was kind of just assumed that we could use this all of this fluid chiller grant funds in this project, no matter what it went towards specifically, but that's not what's allowing us to do. So I can help explain anything else you guys need. I can go over where all of our other funding is for this. I mean, I'm sorry for the bad news.
Is it that we're not going to be able to get it, or we don't know for sure if we're going to be able to get it? This 130 to 190K. The 130 is what I'm really uncertain about. The
additional 60 is I just need to make sure SLIB's okay with us using that security funding for this. And he's working on it now. I just didn't have an answer for you, of course, by the time budget came. The 130 is specifically because that 130 was budgeted in with this chiller portion, but the chiller is not costing us $224,000. It's only costing us, I think Bill Gorman said about $100,000. And I don't have final invoices on anything yet. So this is still estimating that, but I'm going off the total budget that Bill Gorman gave me, which was $1,640,322.50. Within this, just so you guys are aware, Amanda pointed out that in the direct aid line, which you guys had originally as designated $316,000. I haven't used all of that yet. So there's $27,654.16 that I believe needs to, I guess, be rebudgeted for this project.
Chairman Gosar, we also still have money remaining in the county building reserve. There's currently $331,329 remaining in there. That would cover that shortfall.
It's like you wish you didn't have to do that.
No, but
Here,
luckily we did set it aside.
yeah.
We darn near got a whole front entry paid for without having to reach into our funds at all. But we, you know, because we're good pants.
Yeah, I feel really bad bringing this to you today.
I don't think you should feel that self-conscious. Things just blow up.
Yeah.
You can't make everything perfect. That's not how it works.
This might not be in your purview, but you might have insight, Bailey, that security system that's gonna go up here in the front. Do they have an idea of when that might be available, that scanner?
Oh, the X-ray machine?
Yeah, you got.
We're waiting on the approval of our EHP from the state
Okay.
with Homeland Security. So I did submit it back in January and I need to follow up with her. But Homeland Security is a little behind right now with COVID still, unfortunately. And then, sorry, the other thing that I think was kind of new, but you guys had already approved it, was the FEMA funds for the mitigation, which was $12,000. So. You have a question?
No.
Okay.
No.
Any
Jackie's
questions?
like 10 steps ahead of me.
Okay.
So what's cool is that Jackie and Tracy are like, the discussion and kind of what we arrive at, they're already plugging that in almost in real time or making notes. And Amanda's doing that, and so is Kayla, I think. And so is that true? So what it means is that we can get the budget updates based on this discussion almost in real time. And then things don't get forgotten. And there's little notes for things that we have to go back to. Because that's just how awesome we are.
Yeah.
So Bailey, most likely we're gonna have to come up with 190,000 for the budget, because you probably can't imagine that Slip's gonna get back to you if they haven't gotten back to you already in the next week or two.
Oh, no, he'll get back to me. I mean,
So,
I think no, probably not in the next week or two, to be perfectly
Yeah.
honest, because he has to go up his chain over there.
right,
What I'm hoping is, I mean, if you guys do I mean, I don't know where you want to put this. I don't know if you want me to put this in my match. I don't know if there's another account that you guys are thinking. But I'm hoping he's gonna come back and say, no, you guys have this money. This is fine. And then we're only at the 130, possibly a little lower.
Yeah.
So,
Cool. I'm just thinking about how
Yeah.
to budget it without knowing when we're gonna know that.
yeah. And I mean, I was talking to him last week and it sounds like things are not going so well over there. But he's gonna work on it as soon as he can for us.
You know, what's interesting is that as tight as we budget, we don't seem to have to amend. Which I find miraculous. It means, do you know what I'm saying? So we're always thinking, okay, we're gonna fund the very bare bones and we're prepared to amend it. And we don't have to. It seems like that we did in the last fiscal year, it seems like we used a commission fund of some sort as a grant match because that account was spent out, but I can't remember which one. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember what the project was, but I mean, I guess the point is that it worked. That, you know, if the grant comes up that needs matching, it doesn't have to be in the matching account necessarily. Right?
One of the items in my match account is just called unanticipated grant match, which I've requested 10,000 the past couple of years because things happen. And also, if there is like a smaller grant that comes up that needs like a small amount of match, we can take it from there. But anything with a big amount of match needs to come from you guys, and we need to figure out where the funding needs to come from. But $10,000 is, you know, enough. Like Chad was thinking that this FEMA stuff might happen early, which I didn't think it would. But I was like, Chad, it's okay. You know, I have some money in my unanticipated. We can start with that and then request, you know, the rest when it comes to budget. So.
And you haven't had to deplete that, at least in the last 2 years.
This past year I haven't. The year before I did. There was another issue that came up.
If you guys have any other questions for Bailey. Bailey, thank you. And we'll see you till Thursday and then we'll see you back in July again.
Hope everything goes well, baby.
Yeah.
The American Rescue Plan Act, it says under water and sewer infrastructure includes improvements to infrastructure such as building or upgrading facilities and transmission, distribution, and storage system. I think it might be kind of a gray area that needs further research, but maybe.
With that 190,000, if that's what we end up having to, that it could come out of our ARPA or whatever it's called.
Maybe I will look into, this is just the quick reference, guys.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Tracy.
One of the things that we haven't really talked to Bailey about, but that Tracy and I will have to be is the artwork in the North Entry. And depending on whether or not the Board of County Commissioners are interested in providing additional funding so that more artwork can be placed, or keep what we have basically and basically just use the funds that have been appropriated.
Are you thinking about the permanent artwork? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. And that comes out of the grant match. Is that what account is that?
Direct aid.
Direct aid
is where we had it before. And I just, like, when I was doing the worksheet, I zeroed it out over the weekend, not even thinking, and then it just hit me that we won't have expenditures till next year. We need to reallocate that.
Right. And then we might have to, the small potatoes, but we probably should have some sort of grand opening here in the summer for that new facility. And nice to have, we don't have the permanent artwork, but it's nice to have the new artwork in there. That's awful nice. So
we're gonna have to make sure that Tim Chestnut is here to actually access the building properly and test it out. I'm sure.
Yeah. How do you guys want to handle that? Or do you want to put that at the end of these things or something? You know, if there's a list that keeps growing, do we want to put that at the end of Wednesday? Or maybe there looks like a block tomorrow at 9:30, I'm guessing.
Absolutely, there is. Stacy from Public Health contacted me this morning and she'll be here tomorrow at 9:30.
Okay.
I
Mr.
guess,
Chairman, we can discuss it on Wednesday when we discuss other special
Yeah.
funds and requests.
By then we might have a few more to come to mind.
who's choosing that art? Is this commission choosing that art? Because we have a group appointed who's choosing like the permanent art, but in the interim, is it the Laramie Art Coalition who's,
Yeah, it's already up the temporary.
Yeah.
it's so
Art with
funny, I haven't, for whatever reason, I was coming a different door.
Right.
I have to go up there. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's so
Yeah.
nice to have something up as well.
The one that the high school kids did, it's on where the stairs that went down to the sheriff's office used to be in that hallway. It is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's about the aquifer, and I don't understand that. It's just pretty.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool.
I have to say that I would like first grade kid artwork in there, like the library there. Anything is good.
When they go up the stairs from second to third and they put all the kids' artwork on the stairway, that's one of my favorite things.
So yes, we will be back here again tomorrow at 8:30. And we'll knock out the coroner building, public health attorney, road and bridge, IT, district court, and the clerk. One question for you guys is the airport board's not on this list. And are we gonna handle that at the end of Wednesday, you think?
There is no appropriation that's has been submitted in any of the numbers that we have. And 1% is what we paid in funding in the past, and also we provided them from the
Economic.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, the recapture fund from the rents on Beach Street.
okay, well, you guys would have it under control, so I guess we will see everybody back. Look at that. An hour early,
Hey,
maybe.
I can make that
Yeah.
meeting after all.
Right. And I'll see most of you guys here back at 3:30.
Seriously efficient.
Thank you all for joining us. We will be back tomorrow at 8:30 to continue the budget. And David, are you going to shut us down or do you want me to close out from here?
You can go ahead and close it from there if you like.
Okay.